There are myriad forces that make community difficult in a meaningful sense. There is a pro audio community. We are not cohered in a way that's meaningful and fulfilling to us, in a way that sustains the institutions that shape the young people into being excellent. Dude, the boys are back in town.
I know, it's good.
It feels
good to be back. No guest.
We got jokes tonight.
Really thankful for all the guests that have joined us for the past 5 weeks, but it's nice to have a time to reflect together.
Yeah, I've missed it a lot.
Honestly, yeah.
A lot.
So much.
The weeks are busy and we don't, I don't know how many friend groups get to spend 3 or 2.5 or 3 hours fully in it. No phones, no fucking around.
Every week.
No other people interrupting. Like, it's, at this stage in our lives, when you're 15, sure, go to the fountain in town and kick around, whatever, that kind of shit people do. Like,
I have to call you out on that.
Where's the local fountain?
Well, we don't have one in where I come from, but like we would go to the park or whatever. Or you go to the town center, whatever. The shopping mall, right?
Siri.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Where's the nearest fountain?
Yeah. Kids, that's what kids do, right? They go to fountains and take drugs.
I guess so.
Oh, you take drugs at the fountain?
Well, yeah, it's not. Yeah,
What else are you going to do there?
If it's a fountain?
It's kumbaya, you're
Bring a
praying
cup.
and shit. No. Kids are doing whatever kids are doing. But
Back to your point.
the point is, when you're young, you have time and you don't have anything to say of consequence. And when you're older, you've got ideas and no time. Like, it's very rare for 4 friends to spend 3 hours. Maybe over dinner, if you're lucky. But
every week?
Every week, it's rare,
Yeah.
And a dinner that people don't skip or, So I think we've all come to value it and missed it. The conversations with the guests were a whole other different, amazing, interesting energy.
Yes.
But they weren't that. They were a different thing. As we talked about it last night, Some Spider. They serve a whole other energy-giving purpose and
For us
new ideas.
and for community.
Yeah, completely. But
I do think, just on that note for a little bit, I'm sure you guys talked about this as well. I think it's a little bit of a reach for us to find the concept that we've worked out was that it would be nice to have the guests join our conversation. So we could even start the episode and then bring them in. We haven't really done that the way we kind of mentioned we'd try. We've done it maybe for a minute, but the reflex is to say, "Oh, we have a new person here, so let's include them as soon as possible." If it wasn't a pandemic, we could have them at the table, and I think that would naturally start feeling more like, "Hey, step into our world, and we're going to have this conversation with you, and enter accordingly." And I think it's going to be easier than someone on a screen. When and how do we bring them in? I think that'll happen organically when they're at the table with us.
I think a lot of it has to do with who knows the guest. How familiar are they to the audience? Because if they're not, then it's like, well, then you have to get your bearings. So it's only natural that, like, even like, say there's a new person at the dinner table where you have a table over at Manuela here, and they're, let's say it's a friend of Michael's, right? And then, I'm going to be curious about, oh, how do you know Michael? And how do you, how did you, where do you come from? Like, you're going to want to know that stuff to get your bearings and find your common ground and whatnot. So I think it's natural to sort of go into interviewer mode.
Sure. But then the flip side to that is in a real life example, meeting Mike Miller, for example, and you had meeting him once, inviting me across the street to Manuela. Were you there with me first day? And just based on the fact that he was there with you and a PMC user, there was no inquisition. I was just like, oh, who's this person? This is cool. Like, let's just chat and let's get down to it.
Yeah.
I think fast friends was the term coined by Chris Tabron and yourself.
Indeed.
And I try to live life that way, like letting people just be as much as they possibly can on first meeting in order to generate that that interaction being as organic as possible. But of course, then we got into, we both have fathers that helped us build our first studios, and one was in Rochester and one was in Long Island, and then that kind of camaraderie is built around natural progression of conversation, where I do think that could happen here at the table, where we just enter them into our world. And that's all we do. And then something will come out. That's like with Kian, for example. Like, I have so many alignments with him that I wouldn't have known without having that conversation with him. But if we were at the table, they would just come out, and then we can go deeper into them over Manuela dinner. So I think there's an argument to both sides of this.
Yeah, I think there's a reason it didn't happen naturally. Is because it's unnatural. You know, it's like you can't. Like, we've known each other a long time, and there's a certain comfort level, and we have a way of interacting, and we've been practicing it. And for somebody who's not in our small circle, it changes the dynamic. It like changes the rhythm. It naturally has a different thing about it. I'm curious about like, how do we maximize that situation? It doesn't seem like it naturally falls into like, oh, now it's just 5 of us. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I guess it doesn't naturally go there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been thinking about process this week, if that surprises anyone.
When was the last time you didn't think about process?
I don't know. But I've been thinking about it more, knowing that we had that conversation. That was like, where does it apply? And I think like what we're talking about in art club is like how much of like the process will it's just naturally going to be difficult just based on like the task, like it's a complex task, and then how much of like the problems that emerge during that task can be architected out through process. And so I think like contextually having a mic in front of your face, having headphones on your ears, this build up to like speak with us, this like coordination, all of that stuff, we're still kind of making it more seamless, but like there's always going to be that friction. So they're already coming in like prepped. If Mike Miller was going to Manuela and you're like, all right, we're about to have this conversation. Are you good? Like, is your voice going to drop out at any second?
It's going to start exactly at 7.
Exactly at 7. There's going to be music right before, by the way. And you're going to sit at the table.
It becomes more performative,
mics,
of course.
And then 1,000 people are going to listen.
Right. Yeah. And so like, there's that. But I think like there's some bits that we could architect over time out through the process. And then I think it's just us practicing, it's just us like doing this thing, which is naturally complex.
So you're talking about the difficulty level for our guests and the difficulty level for us.
Both, yeah. I mean, there's like, exactly.
Yeah.
I had a really great time with Ethan last week.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, me too.
What a lovely lad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we reflected, it's important to mention this in the process, we reflected after the fact about how difficult it was. It was our first time kind of doing it over Zoom where the guests could, where Ethan could see our faces each. We had our own iPad or laptop in front of us. And, Rory and Spider felt really disconnected to the conversation itself because there was more devices. And I felt it, but I wasn't as bothersome by it. And Michael's kind of used to having devices in front of him, so he didn't seem to bother you at all. It's like this level of a dynamic of 4 that just, it's a struggle for us too, to find the perfect balance of having that versus right now we have no devices in front of us except for Michael with a pen. And this feels the most natural, right? So how do we architect this into that is clearly the obvious.
I'm in love with conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love talking to people. And when it drifts too far from natural, organic, rhythmic, musical conversation, I get less interested. When it becomes about sort of specific agendas too much or becomes too calculated or predictable, it just is less interesting. It's not bad. It's just I love the
vibrance,
the surprising sort of natural, organic quality of good conversation.
I mean, I take that over dinner you mentioned yesterday's live with Matt Rad, how it was the first time it was really surprising to you because
I loved it.
I was just, I don't know.
It felt dangerous. I was falling asleep on the couch. The girls had all fallen asleep early, and I had a night off. It was my first night off since the desert, since we came home. And I got home at 7, played stupid giddy games with the girls on the trampoline,
Sounds
and
fun.
it was great. Yeah. And put the girls to bed and then had a big long shower, came down and I put you guys on, poured a glass of wine, lit the fire, closed my eyes and just listened. I didn't watch you guys, which I really enjoyed just listening. It was actually really enjoyable just listening. I'd never done it.
I want to talk about that a bit too.
Yeah,
keep going.
with the it was interesting because, of course, Instagram, it's on your phone. If you close the app, it closes, all of the Instagram things. So it wants you to look and engage.
Yeah.
So just listening, I just put the phone to my side, closed my eyes and listened. And it was just like, I had no idea where it was going. And it was really exciting for me, for you.
Yes.
And for Matt. I was enjoying listening to Matt be out of his depth with it. And not because it was new. It was just
he was on a ride.
Yeah, it was.
He seemed to enjoy it too.
Yeah.
On the back of our conversation yesterday, Spider, we had Spider and I had a meeting with a client about a Unfuck project, and then we sort of rolled into a conversation about what Spider's after dinner drinks format is or isn't or could be, what the role of sort of our individual solo things, like we talked a little about at dinner, what that might be.
Yeah.
It's a place to sort of express the more extreme attributes.
Yeah, it's a playground.
Not that it is. We were sort of teasing out the idea that it might be.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, there's a limit to how extreme any one of us can be at the table, because there's four of us. We're trying to have a conversation. There's a rhythm, But when you're solo, it's like it's your show. Just if you want to go full Yoko and fucking howl at the moon, like do your thing. So it was exciting for me to see you pushing that limit, because up until yesterday I thought I knew what Live with Matt Rad was, and now I don't.
I love that.
And that's great.
Yeah.
That's about the most exciting thing to me. When I talk about play and creativity and sort of that freedom that this space gives us, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Curiosity, the exploration, the kind of pioneering spirit.
It seems like people are down. Like when they're the thing about the not watching part of the Instagram feed versus like doing the Clubhouse thing, right? It's like it's only audio. And I think Lex and Eric talked about this a little bit in the beginning of this Lex Friedman, Eric Weinstein podcast recently, about how there's some intimacy to just audio. And we kind of touched on it when we're talking about like this conflict at the table with the camera and how people are seeing us, and do we do Zoom or do we do a 360 camera in the middle of the table? Like, what if we just did audio, and how intimate that can be? There's something about interacting with people in real time in the comments on Instagram Live, and it feels communal. So I can say, oh, that person asked a good question, let's hit that now.
Yes.
But also that's distracting, mixed with the self-conscious nature by default of us looking at ourselves. I'm trying to look at Matt, but you look down, and I can tell when Matt's looking at me and looking down. I just know the difference because we're human and we can tell the difference. And then there's that level to it where I'm not the most self-conscious person, but like, to be honest, we're all self-conscious, right? So I don't want to look at myself when I'm talking.
I just try to stay in the frame.
Yeah, exactly. You're always trying to stay in the frame, and that it's tough. It's a balancing act. I mean, everything is a balancing act, but I actually think it'd be better if we just talked. And the one time my internet was being weird and I couldn't see the comments, I got DMs from people saying that was my favorite because you weren't talking, you were just riffing. Like you weren't talking to us. You weren't really seeing what we were saying, and it felt
So that's a format
better.
change. Like there could be situations where it's all about engaging with the audience, and other times not.
Yeah, you can.
Or you can go into a segment where at the end you do the audience interaction. That's sort of a choice.
Yeah, I like working this stuff out loud, out loud, because we're all getting better at it, and it's only going to benefit. But I'm just glad that you felt something different from that, Roy. It's always nice to
it had like an edge.
Yeah,
You seemed to be on one. Like, it was cool.
Yeah, it just felt different and exciting. And
I had a long walk before it, and I was really thinking about something that isn't discussed, which is color in music, and how abstract colors can be turned into terminology that can evoke emotions. And I know there's a correlation to that in artwork. There's a reason why there's contrast, and there's a reason why there's blues against blacks and reds, and this all exists in modern art. I know designers think about this.
So is there a language there we can use in music, like to shorthand?
I'm going to be straight. I was barely following you for about 15 minutes, but I was super excited.
That's so interesting. It was such a concise thread for me.
Yeah,
I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to look into.
First time putting it out there, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. It gets sharper in public.
Yeah,
that's one of the most important things we're doing, is working the ideas out in real time.
Yeah,
and it's compelling, I think.
Yeah, I was genuinely excited to jump on and kind of pick his brain on something that I knew that he's never thought about.
Yeah.
And if he had, I'd be like, "Whoa, that's great! Like, what do you think about it?"
Yeah,
but
he'd
I
have
just
something.
want,
Yeah, I'm curious to see what we find out about color theory and if it holds up, and if it could be integrated.
Yeah, I got a
Only
book
there was
recommended to
someone
me,
who
and I
knew.
bought it already, and I'm going to start reading it tomorrow. So I'm going to get back to you on that.
Yeah, Vasily Kandinsky.
That's the book.
Teacher. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
The girls were
Enough
doing
said.
That's the book.
a Kandinsky art class today online,
Yeah.
like with some Zoom teacher. Yeah, as part of there.
His whole kind of thesis was trying to marry those two things when educating students of design who had been through a course load of dance and song and performance, now coming into their second or third semester learning about color and figuring out how to integrate that. But also on his own, exploring that in his abstract art. So like all of his art is called like improvisation 1, improvisation 2.
I love that.
And I think there's other musical terms that he uses for other pieces, but it's all like he's playing jazz music and he's creating the art. and he's
Exactly.
connecting blues to bass and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
pretty fascinating.
And
He's one of my faves.
the I can't wait to read it. Connor, Brashak's Connor, recommended it to me because we were talking about it. And it's interesting that it stems from education because for me in the morning, it came from like, if I were to open up an audio school, what would I want to teach? What were my classes? Like, what would I get other people to teach and what would be my classes? And class 1 would be speaking like an artist. I would try to learn how to teach engineers and producers to speak like an artist, think more abstractly about what things could mean, and then we would have 1 to 3 hour lectures on what things could be, just the potential of words and how they could be used, because there's no finite answer to what any word. And actually, just we'll segue into the fact that I have a dictionary in front of me right now that was an amazing birthday gift from Michael Morgan here. We were walking around. Where were we?
Driving.
We were driving
to the retreat.
We're driving to the retreat, and he was like, words mean a lot to you. The usage of words and the specificity of the meanings of them. Like, you've always kind of challenged me on why you're using a certain word and if it's correct. And then we would look it up, and he bought me this really beautiful, aesthetically pleasing dictionary and thesaurus for my birthday coming up on Saturday. But yeah, words do mean a
30th
lot to
birthday.
me. 35th
30,
birthday.
right?
30. Yeah, I'm going back
29.
in time.
Dude, the hue of that leather binding is so on brand,
Yeah.
bro.
It's
How
so-
did you customize
No,
that?
that was the thing. When
Really?
I saw it, I was like,
That's it.
done. I'm not looking anymore.
Oh, that's
I don't
a
care what
lovely-
it costs.
That
That's the
flesh
one.
tone.
Yeah.
It's
peach,
a
flesh
gorgeous,
tone,
like Ecro peach.
creamy. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love it so much.
I wanted to extend on that education thing because I've been riffing on that in my own right. Been heavily inspired by the Bauhaus and kind of how they structured their school. Kandinsky was one of the teachers there. And when I was in Berlin about 2 years back, right before the pandemic, actually, went to a 100-year anniversary of the Bauhaus, and on the wall they had the preliminary course exercises listed out. And like the first 3 are like really cool. Morning greeting, emotion shorthand, and breath shorthand. Then physical exercises, ice skating on paper, and then it just goes on and
Ice
on.
skating on paper.
Drawing war, like what the fuck? It's just wild.
Sounds like a Bauhaus documentary title.
Yeah, so I mean, like,
Fantastic.
they were looking at this from a much broader lens. I'll share the album of some of the.
But that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like, why are we teaching how to use an SSL console when we can talk about real life communication in creative process, which is, what we're here to do.
It's like, how do you sonically create war? You know what I mean? It's like drawing war. That's a fascinating concept. Like, what does that even sound like or look like?
it looks like red.
Good.
It sounds like
Yeah,
red, but what
right.
does red sound like? Or
Which
what is
red?
red? Anyway,
know,
but that's the impetus for all of it. It's like, if an artist wants a certain emotion or color in the bridge, how do I get that sonically? There has to be a way. There has to be resonating frequency bands, and depending on where they are, like, where is the cello frequency between 200 and 1K? Like, where is that resonance? What color? Is that green? Is that brown? Like, where is that, and what does that make you feel? And I know it's possible.
I wonder if there's that's technical sort of objective reality, say like the bands of hearing, the hearing being a sort of multi-band machine. So perhaps there's a spectrum, in the frequency range that correlates to like the components of an orchestra, right?
Yes.
So maybe that rainbow exists there, but
That's
also,
what Kandinsky does. He relates it to an orchestra.
but maybe
apparently.
there's like there's that. Maybe there's a way of looking at it that way, but then there's also context. So a cello could be different colors in different moods.
Exactly, the mood.
Yeah, and that's
For those of the people that did not hear the Live with Matt Rad, he was trying to say that there is no color of a different guitar, for example. Like I said, well, I'm not saying that the guitar is a different color. I'm saying, well, does the 1960s Gibson provoke a different emotional response to the nervous system of what you want to play versus a Taylor from 2020? Like you might play something brighter and more enthusiastic on the Taylor just because that's what brings it out of
be
you.
a little less brown.
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly. But the instrument can evoke an emotional response. The sound of that can be more subdued or melancholy and captivating based on the timbre, though, and the way it feels in your hand. So there's a lot of directions it can go. So it's way more abstract. But I do think that it doesn't have to be anything, obviously, but I would bet that there is some sort of spectrum relation to our ear intake to the nervous system, that certain denser areas of certain frequency ranges would hit us differently.
Oh, I see. So the light spectrum in the eye has a correlate in the ear.
Yes.
The sound spectrum.
Yes.
There's
Maybe
some
through the
correlates.
vagus nerve of some sort, and there's a connection there. Because artists are saying it, we know synesthesia is a thing, right? This is a thing. It's not in as many people as claim to have it. But it's like I was equating that to like a relative pitch versus perfect pitch. Like you're born with perfect pitch. But you can develop relative pitch. People could probably be born with synesthesia or learn how to correlate sounds to color and emotional,
Evocation.
evocation. Yeah, that's the word. Anyway, that's my thesis.
There's a part about color that's interesting. A study that I did read, which was around the subjectivity of the naming of colors. So like how different cultures saw blue, like what they identified as like blue on average per culture.
Yeah.
So which is like an additional nuance on top of.
Exactly.
It's like how do cultures describe sound, or how do
An
cultures,
anthropological view of color.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So there's a
So the universalities that can be pulled out.
Rory, you want to jump in here?
Well, no, there's a bunch. I mean, there's frequency, there's dynamics, there's context, there's people who are sensitive to distortion and cleanliness or tension and release. I mean, there's different. I think different people. I think I'm fascinated by the idea that you would teach a course, or you could teach a course in how artists speak, and then the fact that artists, sort of in line with our conversation last night on the text thread, artists want to diverge. They will find language you don't know. They will keep changing the rules.
That's the fun.
Be new and creative. It is for me too.
That's the fun.
Well, it goes to what teaching is, and it goes to what a course is.
Yeah.
So like in a way, what it sounds like John is intending to do in this idea is to promote openness in the engineer, and to sort of it's really trait openness. It's a kind of acceptance of the artist mind. And to probe the artist's mind. So really, because I love this sort of, it's like artist relationship orientation 101.
Right.
It's like an orientation
the technical
class
term,
that says like, okay, these are the people you serve. You serve the audience and the world at large, and you serve the artist. So you should maybe have different ways to think about them, have like a whole sort of vocabulary around artistry and what it means and how to recognize it when it's happening, when it is and isn't artful or whatever. I mean, I think it sounds super valuable to me.
It just doesn't exist.
At that level.
This is why you keep techs and artists separate. Techs can't do these conversations. In tech land, there's a number. Right. The distortion is 0.002, and the artist's like, well, it sounds shitty. No, I've measured it. It's low. The distortion is everything is good.
I don't like it.
Sounds weird.
Yeah.
And the tech will argue subjective things with objective data and just tell the artist that they're wrong. The artist can't be wrong because they're an artist.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. The friction from the tech,
and that tech is one extreme, the artist is the other, and then engineers live somewhere in the middle on that line or that continuum. So, So I think as you say, Spider, the goal of opening engineers to these, because we need just enough shared language that we can get work done, but we really want the artist to be as free as possible. You know, we need just enough shared understanding and language to sort of tether them enough that we can get the record across the line, but just enough. We don't want them to be, like if you're making records like a production line, then you want everyone to have the same plugins, everyone to have the same sample pack. We'll all be on the same version of the OS. We'll all work the same hours, because who wants to get a file at 4 a.m.?
And it's not like all artists speak the same language.
This is mass production.
Yeah.
And that's very efficient for making lots of the same thing.
Yeah.
Sound familiar? Hello, modern music business. But if we want to engender like real creativity, then we want to minimize. We want to cut down to the lowest possible amount how much we have in common with these people, just enough to get the work done.
Yeah.
They should be eating different food, reading different books, living in different places.
Yeah, optimizing for different things.
Yeah, and being as creative as possible, you know. And that means necessarily that interacting with an artist will be uncomfortable. Yeah. It won't be, they won't slot into our scheduler. They won't you know.
I had an interesting note exchange recently, and again, I do this on Matt Rad too. I love just talking real world day of examples, and this morning was great because the note was the A&R calling and saying, so the producer just had twins, can't really get on the phone, but you know, he gave you really vague notes to the second song. First song you nailed, second song you nailed after really vague notes. So he's going to give you an even more vague note. It sounds unglued, and I forgot exactly what else. It was just a really vague note that it means nothing. And my reaction was, I got this. Don't worry, I know exactly what he's saying. Because he said, you cracked the code with a vague note from the last one. And I think what gets someone excited to continue working with you is that you crack the code, is that you don't have to make them explain things super detailed. Yes, if in the bridge there's something you want to hear or you don't like, let's be specific, but let's be specific when necessary, and let's be more open in discussion otherwise, and more conceptual, and that's what turns all of us on. So it feels like that's something that's not discussed as much or taught.
If an artist is a genius, explaining themselves to an engineer, for example, is exhausting and draining and uninspiring. If an artist is less than a genius, which is where most people are, less than a true genius, then explaining themselves to an engineer in long, form or via an A&R will make them lose confidence, less and less sure that their vision is that they're kind of dangerous, exciting,
in
creative,
themselves,
edgy vision. They're
their
like
teams,
and it's like they're going to dumb it down. Well, I'd like it to be, hey, whatever you
think.
It's into that explaining the joke thing.
Yes, Ellie explained to Mirabel yesterday that we don't explain jokes.
Wow,
we just don't do it.
9 years old,
it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
she's like, if they don't get it, they don't get it.
Yeah,
She's like, it doesn't get better when you explain it. That's interesting. It's a great topic for a course. I hope the school opens.
Soft notes.
Well, it could be part of whatever, quote unquote, mix with the masters or mixed by John Costelli workshop that we all put together one day or something like that. I was already discussing that with Graham. Like, how do we just start getting those going? Like, what's our version of a mix masterclass with 10 people COVID tested and everything, and like max 10, and that's what I would talk about. Like I would just read off what Michael just said. Like, should we figure skate on Pro Tools? Like what does it look like if you just make broad strokes and break things apart? Like Spider, after meeting me for 6 months, maybe explained a concept to me of breaking every sound apart, taking it fully apart, and then putting it back together how you want to be putting it back together, and just see what comes of it, because you can always go back to the way it was. And that was, do you remember that? It was
just like cranking on distortions and like, just hearing what it does.
Yeah, the first thing that I do to any sound is turn up the parameter of choice as much as it can go to hear what it does. So if you're talking about distortion, we always talk about distortion. There's positive and negatives to distortion. I want to hear all of the positives and all the negatives before I choose how much of it I'm going to
so
put
funny
in there.
because that's exactly what I do with Instagram editing for the photos. I go hard on the contrast and then pull it back.
And pull it back
It's
until
like
the
the
eyes
same.
like it in a line. Yeah, exactly.
funny.
That's how you would photo edit.
It can be
That's how-
disorienting. It's not always appropriate.
And you can go too far. Maybe you didn't pull it back far enough. Like I listened to this mix that I'm just discussing. The note that was given was like, it's too hyped. Like it went too far. And I, fresh ears this morning at 8:00 in the morning, just after meditating and going for a walk and doing some stretches, I was like, oh, he's definitely right. Like but the reason why I made it hyped was I'm on the third song on this record and I thought it needed to match the rest of the record. And these two were kind of hyped and loud and this one's quieter and more dynamic. And I tried to match it. So my instinct was this is on the same record, do it. So I'm forgiving myself for why I made it too hyped. But yeah, for that record on its own, if it was a single, way too hyped. Like, let's bring it back. And all of a sudden now the song opens up and it's grooving and yeah. Just fun exercise.
Fun memory.
We should do an episode on the audio school. Like you said, there are 6 courses, so we should just riff on what they are, or you should riff on them, and we should.
Yeah, I'm figuring them out now.
Tease it out.
I see one right here. It says identify materials by touch. And I'm wondering like the analogous, like by sound, like frequencies by sound, or like there's all the time we're listening to a record. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
What do you think that is? Guitar?
I always use the word tangible. Like I want to, when things are tangible, you can like feel yourself inside it, able to touch it. Like, is it a guitar? It doesn't have to be, but is it resemblance of a guitar? Can you touch the string? Can you see a string? Can you see the space that it's in? That doesn't happen with overly limited, compressed, flattened mixes. There's no room for space physically because it's just so jam-packed. Unless there's 3 elements, then I guess you can find the space and all that, but haven't people make records with 3 elements anymore? Yeah. But yeah, I like that one too. I like the association of a multi-sensory experience in a digestible medium of art. And I know you get a bodily response from looking at a piece of art on a wall,
or feeling a material,
or seeing a film. You hear a song, you get a physical nervous reaction, nervous system response. There's got to be a reason why. Anyway, yeah, I think we can go further into that with more knowledge. I'm just early days.
Yeah.
Would love to hear your riff on that episode of the, where is it? Analysis of old masters. Yeah.
Analysis of old masters, yeah.
Just for that response that you just all gave for that reason. I wonder how they did it, first of all, and then I wonder how you would.
Long
for the audience.
Long thoughtful
everyone's
pause.
staring at the ceiling, pondering.
Yeah,
I like
that's
it.
really thinking. Well, I mean, the first question is, who are the old masters? That's like, I'm like, okay, well, what are we talking about? I like the first stuff that came to mind was like Coltrane and stuff like that. I pulled on the headphone cord.
Okay.
Did you? Is it back?
Yeah.
Yeah. It. We lost our headphones for a second, and I thought I was having a stroke. It was like, oh shit.
This is it.
But yeah, this is the moment. He went out on my.
What a way to go out.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm thinking like when you say masters in our world, it's like that's where my brain went immediately. Is like old jazz.
Yeah, we were listening to Miles Davis and Atmos today over at the PMC studio.
Nice.
Had Greg Hayes down to
Oh, nice.
Oh, I forgot
check
to
out
ask,
some of these mixes and stuff. It was really, really fun.
Nice.
And yeah, being in, like, I've never felt more in the room with Miles than listening to those.
It's a wild mix.
It's
a wild experience. That
Yeah.
it is.
It's intense. And sketches of Spain too. Not only the kind of blue thing, which is so great, sketches thing.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's wild arrangements, man.
Yeah, Dave Rideau did a Sketches of Spain 5-1 maybe back in the day.
Maurice, yeah.
But that was just when I moved here, maybe 2011. I went to, like right away, went up to AES San Francisco, and there was a big room. It's a very funny whole event, but we set up a big PMC rig and sort of launched that record, and it was really
I think I bought that on Super Audio CD back in the day.
Yeah.
And listened to it in my hi-fi system back at home.
Yeah, it's really, he did a really good job.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard the Atmos version.
So the Bauhaus of audio. I like it.
Yeah. Cool.
Immersive, unlike anything else. Preparing young people for the future. To be able to adapt to an unknown future. That's an interesting
Something
twist
that
on it.
stands out to me the most in terms of their like pedagogy, I guess you could say. More sort of, I guess it's overall structure of the school is that.
That's a word I Google a lot and forget a lot.
It's sort of like the way in which something is taught. So I guess this kind of applies, which is that the whole intention was that you weren't coming in to be a designer. Like you were coming in to figure out what you wanted to be. So you enter the school, and like I said, like you create songs for the play that you design the set for, and then you act in that play and learn to dance, and like all of these things start connecting. And then semester, I think it's 3, you start defining, but you're still taking other things. So it's this sort of forced integration in a way once you get to the end. And so it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Like, have you ever written a song, or did you just start as an engineer?
Yeah,
It's kind of
this
the-
for
you know,
engineering.
My music school that I went to in Ireland, that's how it was. You did music theory, music management, recording classes. You wrote songs in class. They sort of forced groups of people to work together in bands. You designed posters for shows, ran the shows, did the sound. You're stage managing tonight. You're the first act. You guys are the third act. You're mixing front of house tonight. Oh, no, you're doing next week. And it was like that kind of, you ended up doing everything. And it was really useful.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a second childhood where you get to,
Right.
an idealized childhood where you get to try a bunch
play.
of stuff and
Yeah.
play.
Yeah, it's true play. Yeah.
With some stakes, because if you fuck up the sound,
Some stakes.
your friend,
Yeah.
your friends in the band. But I mean, there's stakes when you learn to skateboard as a kid. You fall off, you cut your knee,
Right.
and that's good too. You know.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
stakes. I like high stakes.
I like play.
We should talk about high stakes because
Yeah.
I'm still I'm still
Yes.
processing high stakes. So
I want to hear you and Spider discuss high stakes for a minute, back and forth.
We
That's what I-
contextualize it a
man.
little.
Yeah, we should talk
yeah.
about the desert.
Yeah, let's start there. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Because that's what we said we would do tonight.
Yeah.
So I guess I would like to ask anyone should we restate what we went out there to do?
Sure.
Yeah.
So as the instigator, I guess I had the idea, and we found that the text thread when we were out in the desert, and I read it at dinner, but I said, hey, I propose that we go to the desert, because at the time we were sort of trying to figure out a bunch of stuff, and all, with limited bandwidth, and trying to...
The song was included.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, we just weren't sure. We had done a bunch of stuff, and we weren't sure quite where we were headed. We knew we really enjoyed aspects of it. We knew we were rubbing. There were some frustrations with other aspects of it. And, questions like, hey, when are we going to have paid subscribers? Were like, tomorrow or in 5 years? Like, we don't know. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was very...
A lot of unanswered questions.
A lot of unanswered questions. So I suggested, hey, we should go to the desert, or I think I said the desert or the beach or the forest. But the desert was what I posted a picture of, and phones off and just go in and let's figure this thing out. A podcast retreat. And with our producer, Dylan, and our new co-producer, I guess is the working title, Graham. And so the 6 of us went, and we rented a beautiful house with a pool and a hot tub on the valley floor, and Joshua Tree, and mountains around,
Stars
snow-capped,
everywhere.
Stars and fire
big,
at night.
big skies in the day and night.
A chef, a private chef.
Yeah, private chef,
Private Castelli.
Chef
Cafe
Jean,
Castelli.
and some nice wine, and we worked our asses off in the day. Some of the most focused work I think any of us have done in a long time, where you're just on for like 9 hours. It felt like, and we sort of gave ourselves over to the process of figuring out what this thing is or what it could be. So yeah, I think that's what we planned to do, and then we went out there and did it. So how, Michael? How was it?
How do you think we did?
Our fearless leader.
Yeah,
I mean, I was worried that there was a tall order. We had 2 days. We definitely needed to factor in time to relax, time to swim, time to break. And so I'm like, all right, how do I plan a workshop around this where the stakes are high in that we have these people in from out of town. We're trying to develop this vision, like
Expensive trip.
it's expensive. Where this vision like is the foundation for then other decisions and other conversations. It's like there's a lot there. So it was from the planning perspective, it was challenging, and I appreciate the assistance there on that. We basically broke it down into 2 days. One day being about us, just all about us. I call it the parts. And the second day is the whole, is what we collectively can do when we come together using our individual personalities, communication styles, preferences, taste, etc. So day one, I was like, all right, how are we squeezing this in? Basically,
it felt like a whole week's of work.
Yeah, I kept saying like,
because
I kept referring it to as a week, and I was like, no, that was yesterday.
The other workshops I've participated in, whether on your side of the table or the other one, is like, okay, so this takes time to draw this stuff out, and to see it condensed was was pretty intense.
Yeah, so that condensed nature was the thing that I was concerned about. Like, can I keep everyone's attention long enough and to do this, And so I wanted to first thank you and Graham and Dylan for sticking to it the whole time. I mean, it was a lot of work. It really was. Like, it was exhausting work, and it was challenging work. So
work
thanks,
that we're not
guys.
used to doing,
And
writing
work,
bits about ourselves and our strengths and weaknesses. It's just like, who writes
remarkable,
that shit outside of a journal?
Yeah,
Like,
and then
who just-
shares it.
and then shares it with
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for context, so the first day was a list of questions about how things that we've really never told other people, like honest, vulnerable statements about ourselves, ways we like to communicate, other things, just really pouring as much of ourselves out as we can, and then writing that out and then presenting it to everyone in the group. And then I was sort of semi-interviewing each person to pull out even more than they'd already were willing to expose.
where the juice came from.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
harvesting all these ideas, concepts, words, values.
I still have a thought. I wake up with this thought that I don't think I did a good enough job in the desert because I only cried once. Just like, I thought there was gonna be more tears.
It was quite an outpouring. I don't know.
I'm confident we can break you.
I'm waiting.
I'm in this for the long.
Yeah,
it's a long game.
I'm waiting for the roast to
We
occur.
end-
I'm
we end the
gonna
show when you
cradle you
cry.
like a baby.
The roast isn't
and you're
gonna
just
do
gonna
it.
weep
No,
against my chest someday.
The roast is going
and
to
it'll
make
be
them
great.
stronger.
Yeah. I think so too. I can't wait to be roasted. I'm actually throwing it out there. I'm going to make it a public statement. I want to be roasted on air for my 35th birthday by my homies
I
here.
can't do
It's
it.
not enough
Come
time
on.
to
I
prepare.
refuse
Come
to do
on.
it.
It's not enough time
Too
to
much
prepare.
material.
Unprepared roast.
Yeah.
Come on. Too much
I've got
material.
books to go through and sort and
Fine.
We have to go
workshop.
live every night for a week. What are you talking?
I want to be
I
roasted.
need to workshop it.
I would have to bend my personality so hard to roast somebody.
Yeah, but it would be so forgivable. I think everyone would love it. Everybody would know your intention.
I would go way too far. I know it.
Yeah.
I know it.
I want to.
I'm afraid of that.
All right.
I'm afraid of
I'm
that
afraid of
side
that
of my.
me.
I've been taming that side of myself.
Why don't
since
we
I was a
just get
baby.
drunk and do knife throwing instead?
Getting drunk doesn't help me.
No, I'm
I'm no more mean when I'm drunk than when I'm sober.
But you are quite animated when you're drunk.
Yeah.
There's
I
another
get
side of the
animated,
There's
spider.
another-
but
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
mean. I'm not mean
No.
to people.
No.
You do a bit
tend to
more
be
rubbing
careful.
up against. You know, you do that already, but there's a little bit more of it, like the elbow jerk.
I do get physical.
Yeah, a little.
I'm affectionate.
But like Big Brother physical.
I'm affectionate.
I kind of miss that. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm down. I'm affectionate.
Rub up on him
Anyway,
right now.
sorry.
It's his
Let's go
birthday.
back to the desert. I'm
him a rub. It's his
hijacking.
birthday.
yeah.
I
It's
don't want
not
to
all
hijack
about me.
anymore.
But can you give him a rub for his birthday?
I mean,
just for the
you know,
audience, for all of
a
us.
kind of rub.
So that was day one. And then day two, I woke up sort of like the first thought when I woke up was I need to write every word that I circled yesterday that kind of stood out to me about each individual, because I felt like we learned a lot about each individual, and there were a lot of like clear sort of values encoded in the things that each person was saying. And so I felt like just being able to see all of those in one place, scrambled together so that you couldn't be like, oh, that's mine, like this row's mine. And, would kind of allow us to look at this again and then reflect on that and say, well, which ones also apply to me? Maybe leaving some of the ones I wrote for you in a way and taking some new ones. And then we went through that exercise of sort of paring it down and down and down and down and down. And then we ended up with...
We were upvoting as we
True.
went.
Pairing it up and up and up.
Yeah.
Yeah, upvoting
Yeah.
values. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, we had 100 and I think it was 107, but there were some duplicates that I actually found out. So there's about 120 on that sheet initially, and we got down to 3 after doing like 3 rounds
Is that
of
a
sort of.
form of manipulation? Like words you really wanted us to say, you put 2 of them in. So
No, I was thinking that. I was like, oh man, like I wonder if people voted, but it wasn't.
Dude,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
a word cloud of 120,
I know.
Yeah,
it's like, come on.
I felt like I
Your
could
brain
barely
can't-
see any of those.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And so we got to 3, which kind of leads us to the high stakes conversation.
Yeah.
But basically, the conclusion of that day, just to kind of put the picture in people's minds, was that we then kind of went through this whole map of what the experience of that we're trying to create looks like at all different angles, and everyone wrote it separately, and then we got back together. I guess we had like an hour to kind of do it separately, really pour ourselves into it. We sat out in the sun. It was really nice. And then we came back in, everyone shared it, and then we started basically consolidating each one of those sections into a unified vision of that. And that was like ended at like 8 or 9 o'clock, I think. And then
as the duck legs were braising all day.
The food was amazing, by the way, dude.
The
Amazing.
duck legs.
Yeah, every bite,
yeah.
all weekend.
So that, in terms of the exercises, in terms of what we did, it was that. In terms of how everyone did, I think it was amazing. I think like there were tiers, there were levels of vulnerability and just exposing truths about ourselves that I haven't seen, especially in groups of men. I've never been a part of that where there's that many men in one place, kind of crying and sharing
It was
things.
a real outpouring.
Yeah, it was amazing,
Yeah.
and there were real signs of love, like demonstrations of love and good faith in the things that we were saying. And I think that, to me, like if nothing else, was just amazing to know that can exist. And
I thought that's what we were going for, right? Like honestly, I thought that's why we were going to the desert. And then the workshop was like,
Yeah.
oh, we'll do a couple hours here, and then we'll go hiking here. It was like
Right.
9 hours of workshop.
Yeah.
I thought the camaraderie was the main focus. Just going into after the instigated text from right in the beginning. So that's why when you kind of teared up and read that text, we're all around the table with this meal served and wine and being poured, and you had this toast, which was the impetus to it. I was like, wow. After we completed all of that, this is what it started as. Like, it's always nice. I mean, to me, I think Michael and I would agree on this. It's always an amazing feeling when you actually do something. And I know that it's such a simple statement, but like there's very few experience that you say you're going to do something and then it actually happens.
You plan ahead.
There's so many ideas, and it's not the fault anybody.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. We're all guilty of it. I have to finish for a living, so I put myself on a far end of the spectrum of completion just because it's my job and that's why people hire me. But there's a lot of ideas I have of things I want to do that I don't actually do. We did it.
Yeah.
And that's something to just be to remark
fully
upon.
I think it's
did
a
it.
group thing. Like
Yeah.
really deciding to do something as a group, collectively planning and then executing.
Coordinating 6 lives, people
Yeah.
in relationships, people with kids,
COVID
considerations, flights.
Cars.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting there and really like it felt like such, I mean, our sort of inaugural toast, we popped a bottle that was a gift from one of our clients and friends. Like there were so many aspects of it that were sort of communal and sort of a reflection of the kind of impact we think we can have, the kind of impact we're already seeing in our own lives.
Yeah.
To me, it was just such a great way to set the tone. And I really did feel that when we were sitting there together about to eat. And I actually think I wrote in the workshop, sitting down to eat with friends and families, like one of my favorite moments.
Yeah.
Which is kind of,
Yeah.
I hadn't put those two together.
I don't really have
But
many
that's a
moments higher
feeling.
than that on the list, to be honest.
Yeah. But to just be there with you guys was really special to me. It was a kind of peak experience.
We made it happen. And I think that was the toast, was like, look, this text and now this. So let's
we can do this. What else can we do?
Yeah,
Like it was
exactly.
so inspiring.
Let's do more shit. Let's make more plans and do it, because we've got a track record of pulling it off.
I think that's the takeaway, for listeners in general. It would be for me, like when I hear someone that I listen to on a podcast or read a book where I deeply connect, like Spider with Seth Godin or something. It's like the idea that something actually can be done is enough of a reason to try to do it, right? Like you guys made fun of me over dinner about Andrew Huberman, and the fact that like I'm on this new regimen of stretching, and I had my first back treatment in my life after breaking my back 13 years ago, and Michael's like, it's not Huberman's fault that you're doing this, it's John Castelli. It's just like you, and I'm like, well, I might need a little help from this story of someone that's giving me data that I can change my spinal alignment with practice and stretching and breathing and treatments. And I think it's nice to get validation that new science is out there, or there's someone that's more like me, or someone did something that I thought I couldn't do. And that's I don't know, that's how we move forward.
We have an urgent errata correction for my daughters.
Oh.
Sydney told me that the girls are kind of crushed that you said the game last night was dumb. And
you did say that.
I want to say to my daughters, if they're listening, that the game was not dumb. It was a silly game. Dumb and silly are very different.
Silly, yes.
The girls were jumping on a trampoline, and I was using the sausage cushions that we play with.
Lightsabers.
The lightsaber cushions on Saturday nights.
I don't like thinking of them as sausages.
And I was sort of swiping them in different directions, but telling them like, up high, and they would duck, and down low, and they would jump to the side, So it wasn't dumb, it was silly. It was very fun and silly, and that is an important distinction.
Yes.
So I hope you're still listening, and otherwise I will be at pains to explain this when I get home. So I hope that the girls hear it.
In their defense, I had a similar physical reaction to that, where I was like, oh, that's not the way that I would have thought you described that.
Poor
should have called you out earlier,
silly?
but yeah.
No, dumb is very different to silly.
Very different.
Oh, you
very
said
different.
dumb?
I said dumb. That's what
it's silly.
Saying. Yeah.
Hopefully they're not
Correction noted.
Reviews on this episode.
And the correction has landed. They heard you. Okay,
great.
Nice.
Well, I love you, girls, and I'm sorry.
I almost said
that
sorry, kiddos.
That was the highlight of my week last night. So,
And they would correct me for saying kiddos.
yes,
Because
exactly.
they've asked me not to call
The phone will blow up.
They've asked me not to call them that.
that's a theme
It's very
too.
hard.
Do you want to jump into high stakes? On that
yeah,
note,
but you said the word validation, and I want to validate all of you guys. I've been practicing this.
Oh.
I think that first of all, the hosting abilities have just hit peak John Castelli performance level in the ring, fucking A-game type stuff.
10 rounds.
10 rounds. I mean, the food was spectacular, and what it really is a demonstration of is your commitment to excellence in the things that you're excited about and the things that you care about, and just going as deep as you can with the things that are important to you, and even and specifically things that also benefit other people and that help raise the spirits of other people. So thank you for doing that.
You're very welcome.
I really did.
I've been trying to make mini John Castelli riffs at home.
I love this series.
Just to keep the retreat vibe going every morning, but waking up, having coffee going, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, like the whole thing was well coordinated. Full service and thoughtful and beautiful. It was just excellent.
I was most impressed by the fact that you did it without any drama or stress. There was no moment where you were like, get the fuck out of my kitchen. You guys need to stop talking right now. That's like
There was no room for that.
No, but it was just, that was the most important thing to me. If you said, I can serve you amazing food, but I'm going to be a fucking diva bitch about it. Or there's burgers and fries, but I can chill with you guys. I'd go for the latter.
Of course.
But the fact that we had the amazing food and you were just like floating like a swan up and down the kitchen, that was very important to me because the energy was so heightened all weekend that if you were clearly aiming high, and if you were stressing, nervous, agitated, irritated, that's, the pan is the wrong kind of pan or whatever.
Which it was. There was nothing correct about that kitchen. I actually brought half my kitchen.
Salmon.
Yeah.
I brought all the spices and oils and stuff myself.
Yeah, you brought all the
You
good
brought
stuff.
a lot of shit.
But that was what was most important to me of all of it, was that you could do it in a that was kind of generous.
Well, on that note, that there was a word that came up when it was my turn, my round to go, which was competitive, and I always saw that side of me as a negative, and you guys reframed it as a positive. And the reason why I wanted to do that was I've always wanted to see if I could private chef, and cooking 3 meals a day for 6 people is not easy with complex. We're not again. You're saying it's not burgers and fries.
No,
it was 3-course meals each, morning and night, and then a snack during the day.
But could I put that idea into your head though? Burgers and fries by John Castelli could be fucking dope.
I mean, I would learn.
And I would,
if you want me to.
I'd be willing.
Oh, last night went to Rustic Canyon and had triple cooked fries, fried days before and then 2 times a day of. Wild, just the best. Anyway, with like a bone-in dry-aged New York strip. Anyway, Chef Andy at Rustic Canyon kind of killing the vibe over there. But that idea is being competitive with myself. I'm not competitive with another chef in there, but can I do it, and can I do it quietly? It's funny that you brought that up, because it was very intentional for the last hour, the workshop is still going on, right? So I'm listening, but I can't listen if I'm stressed. So I can't participate if I'm stressed. So I have to not be stressed so I can participate, but also not really say much because you guys are talking, but it would get in the way. And that's not natural to me. Yeah. Natural to me is to focus only on what's happening and not be able to do both. And I actually tried to formulate the meals and the creation of the meals around the workshop. And that was a competitive thing for me to see if I can do it. It's like, I wanted to see if I can pull it off.
I wanted to validate Rory for setting up and really for recognizing that this needed to happen. I think your ability to recognize opportunity is well developed, and so it was very important that you did that. I think the way it was framed, the timing, the vision for it was all there and enough to inspire everyone to kind of kick it into gear and assemble the troops and do all the things that it takes to realize the thing. And another part of that is just being, you were super vulnerable at many points during the trip, that levels I've never seen you be. And again, another demonstration of like, men can do this, one, and not to make it a gendered thing, but it's sort of the culture of men is not to get around and cry about anything, on average. And so the fact that was happening, it meant a lot to me. It was a good influence. And your ability to just take in feedback. I know Dylan was dishing it to you, and rightfully so in some ways, and you weren't like, yeah, cool, man, that's just the way I am. Like, fuck out of here, you willingly accepted and took in feedback
and contemplated it.
Many people would be the complete opposite.
Leave the room and
storm off, debate why he's wrong, or all the other ways you can just deflect
drama,
reflection. So thanks for setting a tone, a vision, and an example to everyone that was there, and to anyone listening.
Yeah, it really did set the stage for what we did. And I have to imagine, Michael, for you, it was a great atmosphere to do what we did because of that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It was challenging. I was relating to John of this whole like multitasking. I was facilitating, but I also wanted to participate.
Yeah,
and trying to snap between modes and navigate that well without being a biased
facilitate
facilitator.
In different ways. You're scribing for yourself. You're drawing the diagrams.
Yeah.
You're like, and also guiding us and feeling us, and
that's
quite a lot to do all at once.
It's a trait I was mentioning earlier, something I personally want to develop. I was leading one team before this, like a larger team, and I felt like I wasn't at my best. And it's sort of been a personal goal of mine to really improve my leadership skills and all of the different elements. There's so many of them, but sort of just slowly develop them over time. And facilitation is definitely a major one. And also just understanding everyone's individual communication style and personality. So that's been a personal mission of mine that I've been on and kind of had a lot of struggles with being a leader when I was. hired into it, and then after the fact, how I felt about it, and then sort of seeing if I could even take on that role in any capacity in any project I'm on. Yeah. And then Spider, validate you. You were the first person to respond, to read your questions out loud. And I feel like the first person to go is always like, there's a little like levels of nerves, and there's like, you're kind of priming the group. You're setting the tone. You're like setting an example of what could be, or you're fucking it up for everyone. Or you're like, I like my bike, you know, and then it's like, all right, that's how deep we're going. All right, now everyone's like, great.
I like bikes.
He likes his bike.
Yeah. You know, it's like, all right, cool. We can get out of this really easy. And your responses were so compelling and so thoughtful and answered in the way that the intention of the questions were trying to. You answered them assuming the best intentions of the questions and knowing what the questions were really trying to do, like seeing beyond the thing that was in front of you, which is a skill that you have. That's a specific trait of like, what is beyond the thing that's in front of me? What is beyond the system or the business or whatever, right? And so, or the person. And that set the tone for the rest of it, right? Like you set up the tone by saying we should go. You set the tone by like the hospitality, and you set the tone by the level of depth that we were looking to take this in, you know? And that really helped me because I'm facilitating and like, it's a lot of work. And so having someone that's just already on it, you got it, you really helped me a lot. And I think you knew at the time that it was, you were giving me a layup at the same time. And I love, by the way, side note, I love the term layup. Because it's like the most communal move, and it's just it's pretty cool.
The layup.
When a producer sends a dope rough mix with great stems, it's a fucking layup.
Yeah,
knock that shit out, get the next one on.
Like,
it felt like a layup. Like we were sitting across the table like this. And you just looked at me, you gave me that smirk where I was like, he did that for me, and I appreciate that.
I mean, all those hours with you,
right,
in the design studio.
Okay, hold on, my turn.
Paying off there.
Validate Michael.
That's why.
Are you done?
Damn.
Are you done validating me?
No.
Oh, there's more.
It didn't seem like you were.
Sorry. Wow.
But you know,
competition. My turn.
Take your time. Think about what you want to say.
I want to validate.
There was a moment where we were sitting outside by the fire and you were telling me something, and I'm like, dude, you're difficult to work with, man. Like, I can't lie to you about this. Like, you're difficult to work with, and I absolutely love you, and that's why I continue to do it. And like, you took it with complete good faith and understanding, and like we got into it and we explained it, and I was like, I could see why your dad was frustrated then, because I felt that same frustration, you know, like and like it was a moment of growth, and it was a level, like we just continue to go deep and explore the bounds of our relationship as we work together, and like that was just another kind of peak moment where I was like, I just love the fact that I have someone that I could say that to, that wouldn't get offended and know where my intentions are and know kind of what I meant, and use that as like a way of like, that's a good point. You know, like maybe there's some way I can grow from this, or like reframe the way I was thinking about it. So thank you. Thanks, guys. Love you guys. It's my last episode. Just want to let everyone know that
that's all the validation
and I'm really sick of doing this for you guys.
Well, I had something to say, but that was really. Now I'm just reflecting on the fact
you have
that
to engage that competitive nerve. Right
no. I'm reflecting more on the fact that like that's what that means so much to all of us, and I think that's why the four of us are here, because that exact state of being is so necessary to have like positive outcomes or aligned outcomes to really push anything forward. Otherwise, we're just talking. Otherwise, we're just dudes talking. And there's enough dudes talking.
I mean, that's really the high stakes thing.
Yeah.
So if you've got 4 people who have a high stakes attitude, they're optimizing for things. They're going to be in conflict at times.
Yeah.
4 fucking people, like you're going to have the occasional
6.
conflict.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. In that case, yeah. So you've got like conflict is part of the price of admission to like doing collective work at, high levels. we're all trying to do our best to understand what we're capable of and what we're capable of creating and accomplishing. And for pushing the limits, it's not always going to be easy. Yeah. And, I think I've had that attitude because I wanted a record deal from the time I was 13 and I didn't fucking give up. Yeah. 10 years later it happened. And it happened because I kept pushing the fucking limits, So I'm sort of comfortable with the idea of having quote unquote strong personalities.
Yeah, right.
Working intimately with each other. It's really about how you resolve conflict in that good faith atmosphere, which is another one of the high stakes was one of our top values. Good faith was another concept that rose to the top.
Yeah.
And
sense making.
Making sense of this industry, this career, this world.
In good faith.
Yeah. So high stakes, so I think like the being able to just be open about, dude, sometimes you're hard to work with, or it's like, yeah, I hope so. Or else, you know what I mean? Like if that means, like if we didn't rub, that would mean somebody's lying or we're not doing anything interesting. It's sort of how I look at that sort of situation. You know what I mean? Does that make sense, Rory?
That's completely normal to me. Yeah.
It's just
the
like,
rub.
That is, yeah.
That's just the world I occupy.
Yeah. I mean, as I think, I don't know who I said it to first, but if you have a shitty idea, I'm going to be like, And if you have a good idea, I'm going to argue with you about it. Because I want to make it stronger, I want to make it better, and I want to. If you say, "Hey, we should open a bakery," it's like, well, okay, all right, this sounds interesting. Let's ask some fucking questions. You know how to bake? No, but I'm really passionate. Okay, great. Do you have a space to work? Whatever. I'm just going to go in with questions that are pointed, and the more yeses and the more we can move through it, the stronger the idea becomes. Or the sooner we can say, "Oh, you know what? That was a great riff. Put it to one side. It's not going to work. Next." How can we get onto something that is going to work? Know? So I value that a lot. And that's something that I like when things are nice and when everyone's happy and we're having fun and, clinking glasses, but I'm not afraid for it to get robust because if it's something worth doing, it's worth teasing out.
Oh, there's like levels of it. So there can be a sort of natural rub, like when Michael and I were working together. I have all these years and intuitions that come from being in the studio. And in Michael's world, in design, there's some serious differences we discovered in the way people relate to the art and the work.
Yes.
And we had to talk through it, right? There was a sort of natural rub. But then there's like the willingness to represent ideas in opposition to one of your colleagues, or your friends, your collaborators, and to really go there like an attorney for the idea and not personalize in the process. That's part of the good faith atmosphere. So like those two different kinds of conflict, I think, are super important. This sort of robust pressure testing of ideas, where two people can take two opposing sides and really go hard and try to see if the idea breaks, right? If the logic just falls apart, or if it's worth, maybe coming back to later, kind of log it as an open question.
Yeah.
I mean, we spent 2 hours on potential. Because I don't like the word potential.
I don't either.
And we don't need to do it here on mic, but it was fun. Like there was friction. It was like giving more examples on why that word doesn't fucking mean anything or whatever. But it was a lot of fun. Like actually, that was one of the most fun moments of the trip, in my opinion. I'm cooking. I'm like on the other side of the room, and Rory's like, John, why don't you like that word? Like, what's your friction with that word? It's like, great. Like prompt something. It's just, I don't know. That was so much fun.
It was fun. And well, as it sort of came out later in the day, that word was kind of pivotal in terms of, this high stakes thing, what it means to me, how I'm sort of connecting to that language, the idea of unlocking people's potential or finding energy or, lifting people up, however we would frame making a difference in people's lives. So I sort of, in that one of whatever that worksheet that Michael said we took outside, I can't remember exactly what it was now, but I had come back in with that, and it was sort of had come across this potential thing, and it was like, So we just took a little sidebar and sort of went in on it, and it was. I think it was really interesting and perplexing to some of the guys who were like, "What are you doing right now with this word? Like, what are you doing to this poor?"
I know.
innocent word?"
Graham gave up in 15 minutes.
Yeah. It was his first experience of that. And I was like, oh boy.
Well, with us, you know.
Yeah. With us.
He's just
So fun. Playing with words is fun. But understanding a deeper meaning of the word or what it could mean is so much fun. It's challenging. I don't fucking know what I'm talking about most of the time, but that's the point. Hopefully I'll learn a little bit more about the usage of the word or the term.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
in everyday conversation, I'm interested in what people mean when they say, not like the specific words exactly, but when we're assembling words and sentences that are going to be the foundation of what we build this podcast to be, like they all matter and they all need to be grounded in something that we can all conceptualize. And so like a word like potential that's, you know, sort of in this word cloud, it's like, well, I have a hard time grounding this. So maybe we can like tease it apart and maybe we can all agree on a way of using that word that makes sense.
Sure. And we didn't.
We didn't.
Which is great. So it doesn't make the top.
And it's still interesting. Like I still want to go back to it.
Yeah.
You know?
It was one of those situations though where in the moment I was like, okay, naturally uncomfortable. It's like this happens a lot with us when we hang out or really when we talk on mic, like a few days later, that when the integration happens through sleep and through like talking with other people about it, the topic will reemerge. I'll hear a friend say the word potential, and then I'll have that conversation taking what I took away from it, and then we're building on top of that, and then they might be. And so like, you know, I don't know, something I've noticed recently in a few different things I'm a part of, it's like people want like the answer, but like sometimes it's just there's an answer and then there will be another answer later. You know what I mean? There's like an answer for now. It's like sort of the good enough thing, but not
I like
really.
that, an answer for now.
Yeah.
There is no answer.
I like
this
thinking of it as staying in a process that occasionally produces answers.
Well, that's a different. So that's
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
saying I want the answer now and then I want another one then. Like
That wouldn't be
it's more about the being engaged in a process that produces answers. You know?
Well, I think like so ultimately an output could be the answer. But sometimes there isn't an answer because it exists on a spectrum, and these things like don't actually have an answer. It's hyper contextual. So sometimes it's like sometimes the answer is not an answer. It would be, well, it's on a spectrum and it depends on how drunk you are and how tired you are and what day of the week it is and what project
Just a lot of unanswerables.
Yeah.
There's so many more open questions than
I'm
answers.
just in love with the questions.
Yeah.
I mean, how could there be an answer to the potential question?
Right.
Well,
There's
there's implications. Like,
We shone light on a whole bunch of different interpretations. You had some really interesting takes on it, you know, that made a lot of sense to me that you know, about sort of the cost of a word like potential and putting that expectation on someone. I thought it was a really interesting framing.
Yeah, versus acceptance.
But it isn't, it can't be right. It can't be the right answer. It's an aspect of the word potential.
Right.
You know, and then,
right. That's an
and then
interesting way to think about it,
everyone else did. Yep. There is no answer to that question. It's just a great question.
It's funny because in me saying that or stating it that way, I actually don't believe that I am 100% accurate with that. It's just a version of it. Yeah, exactly.
That was understood in the spirit of the back and forth.
Right.
To me, we weren't having an argument. We were going in on the. It was a kind of a at.
Makes me so happy.
Even at its most robust, it's like fencing. It's like at the end, you're shaking hands. It's a way of sharpening yourself and sharpening the idea, having fun.
It's discourse. I mean, it's polemic. It's just nothing new.
Yeah, but ultimately, I'm much more in love with the question. You know.
Yeah.
What is potential?
Because if you give me the answer, I'm just going to go and find another question.
Do we have potential?
Yeah, it's a great question. What's the evidence?
Yeah,
the thing is, like,
I love that we're actually doing this, even though I said I didn't really want to do it.
We're not going to really do it.
I know.
But the idea is that there are a lot of assumptions that we walk around with that we're blind to, and when you know a notion like potential or is challenged, it's like, well, our resistance to it, it's only through sort of parsing it that you can recognize a lot of those assumptions. It's like, well, actually, yeah, you're right. There is no evidence for that. That actually is spookier than the thing I'm saying.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And what authority told us that was the word to use for what we use it for, and where we're not supposed to question the authority?
It's collective. That's the thing. That book right there is not an authoritative book.
Right. Yep.
That's a study of the way
That's
people
a consensus.
talk.
Yeah.
And that's one of a few dictionaries.
This isn't the one. You didn't get me the original pressing
not the
of
answer.
the dictionary.
It's a dictionary.
Hey, let's jump back to validation for a second, because after all this, we're just going to go to Michael. And one of the first things he wrote down with the section on insecurity was something you mentioned tonight, which is the not being a fulfilled version of the leader that you would like to be. I'm reframing it. That's how I see it. At least it's not you haven't fulfilled your potential of I would say capabilities and capacity to become a good leader would be how I would word that correctly, or at least the way I resonate with it. And I would say that you proved otherwise. Granted, this is a journey that you're on. And do I think you're the best leader? Do I think that you got everything that was needed out of us in that moment? I don't know. Who's to say? But you were damn good at it because we had outcomes. We had aligned outcomes. There was friction at play. There was noticeable frustration that you didn't show. It's clearly, I say that like that for a reason, where I knew you were because I've known you for over a decade, but you didn't show it. And that is a leadership role. That is a characteristic of a leader that I hope to uphold as well, or embody as well, is what I meant. And then you went to bed. Like that's that first workshop night. It was our second night there. You went to bed right after. You took your space. We went out to the pool and the hot tub and did our thing. And then second night, it was kind of the opposite. I actually went to bed early, and you stayed up till 5:30 in the morning because you were celebrating outcomes, right? Like that's the leader. You celebrate when we got what we needed. And the rest of us are like, damn, we're done. Cool.
I celebrated the whole time.
I know you did. But my point is to let you know that you're well on your way to becoming this. I actually genuinely think you're nowhere near where you're about to be, and but it's non-linear. Like you're about to ramp it up real fast, and it's just gonna happen. So I look forward to that. That's all I got for you right there.
Thanks, Brad.
Did you
I'll sign
namaste
off
me?
on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I also love, just on that note, I was hearing Peter Attia talk about this when it comes to age and mobility, because I'm super obviously into mobility conversations now that my back's fucked up. So many things are nonlinear that we think are linear. And it's too late to realize it when it comes to age and taking care of oneself. And the difference between 20 and 30 and 30 and 40 will feel like nothing. Like if you're 40 and you can't lift yourself off the ground with one hand, was his example, like you have a problem. Like every 40-year-old can do that. But when you're 80, you're not gonna be able to do that unless you take care of yourself. And you won't realize it until it's too late. And if you have grandkids that you want to play with on the ground, that's gonna be a problem. Now, this is an extreme example, but this is life. This is real life. Like there's very few things that are linear, and we think of things that way, like we're climbing steps all the time, and it's just not like that. And it was a really eye-opening, drive to mini kebab hearing this today, that Michael's trajectory, it's been a long arc, and at some point it's just going to be, I'm a leader, I run a company, whether it's my own or someone else's, and then I'm going to take off like a rocket ship. And also, the other thing could happen where it's just a crazy decline that you didn't know.
Sick.
Let's look at that. No. We talk about, sorry, just being real. I'm not saying that that will fail. It's just like anything could happen.
Yeah.
Like you could lose your eyesight, and then you can't. I mean,
All right.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry. What do you mean? Or reflecting what was going on in the
Keep
desert?
saying nice things.
Open the book and read what validation looks like. This is not
No. I'm finished validating now.
me out, man.
Now you're just
I'm on to other
freestyling. Now you're just having fun.
I'm on to other shit.
This is just a good time. So Michael goes blind and
Quick
he gets
validation,
AIDS.
but
Yeah.
your life's about to get fucked up or really doused.
I thought I did all right on the validation. I was ready to move on.
So
John
homeless
is
blind Michael.
oh man.
Spider, please.
It's a heavy illustration, unnecessarily heavy illustration of a nonlinear trajectory.
I just love I love listening to when Sam Harris does that, where he just picks the craziest thing. You're like,
That's
wow,
different.
you thought about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's dark.
No, it's
Those are the
I love it
extremes to prove to make it easier for people to understand.
because
Yeah. So, whatever. My bad.
I had a good
I'll
laugh. It
stop.
was worth it. Yeah, I had a good laugh.
I'll stop.
What is the definition for validation? Well,
It's going to take a long time. Siri
let's
would
have a
tell
look.
us faster. So you guys
have a
say
look.
something else. I'll get to the V's.
slowness.
This is a big short change stamp. Thread.
It's under after
Triumph.
you.
Turret.
I think it's
Underdeveloped.
It's going to be a long night.
pretty sure
boy.
it starts with a V.
I'm getting there. Dude.
After you.
Viscous.
Oh.
Verse.
Validation.
V.
This is why everything used to take so long. They're looking up words.
No, I know.
Like,
It's
all right.
actually, we should all just like
Here it
slow
is.
our roll for a
I
second.
have found it.
Mm-hmm.
The act or an instance of validating.
Sick. Not
Shut
wrong.
up.
Fuck you, Webster.
All right. Validating.
Validate would be the word.
Okay.
To make oh my God, this is terrible. To make legally valid? Why are we using the, to confirm the validity of, to corroborate or support on a second basis or authority. So I guess the root word is valid, having legal force, founded on truth or fact, capable of being justified or defended. So that's the root word, and then it goes to validate, then validation.
Definitely
What's-
capable of being justified.
These guys know how to party.
What year is this thing from?
Imagine them
It's a
writing
real good
this.
time.
What year is this published?
I don't know.
It's a really good.
I can just see him with his tie around his head. You know, woo!
Is this like a new one or like a
Merriam-Webster's
classic
Dictionary
one?
and Thesaurus, using this book. That's great. I love the idea of learning how to use a dictionary. 1976.
76?
First published in 1847, first thesaurus in 1976. So
Where's the
That's the
that whole,
origin.
like,
that's the
publishing
origin. I
info?
know I'm looking. Copyright 2020.
Oh, it's new. Okay.
It's new.
I mean, that is how the dictionary is structured. It is very systematic in
Yeah.
that way. It's
Yeah.
like because
It builds on
the root is the
word.
most important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something we often miss, and then we encode meaning into like the
Exactly.
expanded word, but then
Yeah.
the root word is
In the
that.
relational sense, in psychology, it takes on a different connotation
Definitely.
where it's something you do to affirm and recognize the other person.
Yeah, you validate. You make them feel valid, upheld in a court of law. You are innocent.
It's
You know,
respectful
you are
of their So if somebody says I feel a certain way, you know, you can either acknowledge that or, you know, you could try to control. You know, you can criticize somebody for having a feeling, which would sort of invalidate their point of view.
Yes, undermine them.
And their emotional reality that they relayed to you. But to validate, you know, there's like different ways to validate in, you know, say in this sort of like robust sort of discourse, you know, this concept of steel manning someone's argument where you restate their claim or position in a way that they would sign off on, and you actively try to improve on it if you can to strengthen their argument before you attack it or counter it, and that keeps, you know, tensions down. It keeps things from getting personalized,
It shows respect.
and it shows respect. Yeah.
So the goal of the weekend, I think our understanding on the way out, and everyone had a different sense of kind of how it would feel or what it would look like. I don't think anyone really imagined that it would be as workshop heavy. I think everyone was surprised that we went there, that it was that structured and disciplined. Happy that it was, you know, it worked. But I don't think anyone in their mind thought we would spend that long at the table doing those kind of exercises, at least. I mean, you did, because that's what you do.
I didn't until like the day of. I was like, oh, this is going to take a
But
while.
that's where it went.
Yeah.
But I think that the broad goal heading out was we want to figure out really what the podcast is for. So we're 20, this is 28 or 9, 29?
29, you said. We cheers to 29,
29,
so.
yeah.
I think it's 29. So we've, we're over half a year in, 6 months of recording every week. And, I think we took a week for the holidays, did we?
Yeah.
And we've sort of learned, at the start, it's like, well, we don't know if we can talk on mic. We don't know if anyone will want to listen. Now we know that some people want to listen, and we get nice feedback. And we've got well over 10,000 downloads and hits on YouTube and all that stuff. So we have sort of a proof of concept running, and we're enjoying it, and we value it. And the guest thing has been fascinating, and we're learning. We're in a new sort of learning phase with that. But we basically went to the desert. I think my understanding was to figure out what is this for? Where is this headed? Is that a fair framing of the sort of big mission to go out there, the goal, definitely. Right? Mm-hmm. So, with that, what did you guys come away with? What do you think? What do you now understand this thing to be for? What are we doing this for tonight? Where are we headed with it?
I'll start by saying one thing, not to fully answer your question. Just I came away with commitment. I came away with full commitment. Like I just want to do it. I've seen people start podcasts and not work out. I was resistant to the idea of starting a podcast because I didn't think I'd follow through. I wanted to do events and I wanted to educate. And Michael and I, did that, and we tried, and then a pandemic happened. So I came away with true commitment to this platform, this medium, this group, this band. What are we doing? I don't know. I want a platform to talk about my audio school. No, just kidding. Someone else take it. I'll come back with a better answer on the other part, but I'm committed.
So just to summarize, you're committed to the people, the group of people that you were in the desert with, and
the community.
The community, and committed to sort of speaking on mic.
Yeah.
And then the form may change of or the sort of why we're doing it. But those things you think...
It may take various forms.
Yeah. That's...
But there is a community in need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take it, Spider. What do you think? I mean, what do you take away from the weekend?
Oh my God.
In the big sense. I mean, there's so many nuances, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It was validating to me because it was validating to me to bring all of our heads to the same level of analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Because often in our conversations, we talk about things, and in my head, the podcast is a virtual gathering. Maybe in Michael's head, it takes on a different sort of form. John's, Rory's. Not that question is settled, but often when we're discussing things, we are sort of going across each other because we're not at the same level of analysis. And through the workshop, we were able to narrow down and form kind of a composite view of various perspectives on what we're doing. So looking at the podcast from a sort of, an archetypical young listener and how they discover us, engage, and what that process looks like. So all of us to have our eyes on the same stuff was like really powerful for me to feel like more confident about putting more energy and more commitment, and as my gears just turn throughout the day, that was energized me to just go.
Yeah, I was summing it up by saying commitment, but it's a responsibility. It's an understanding of a responsibility that I think I have. I think that we have, but I think I'm just speaking to myself personally. I think the way that I'm thinking about our industry and the way we are and that we have been is either unlike a lot of other people, or those people don't have the prominent voice to do it. So if we're going to take a chance to do this, I take that responsibility very seriously, and I came away with the confidence to the commitment to that responsibility because of what you're saying. I feel like we actually can do some good, and with like you said, the archetypical young listener that really doesn't have resources to learn or to understand what it's like to make records or make
They don't
art,
know who to
or
trust.
they don't know who to trust. Yeah, and we're trying to do the distilling and the research and
The sense making.
exactly. So that's that. Yeah, I think we're aligned there for sure on that.
Yeah, I think so. That alignment for me was powerful. I think there's just like a lot of dimensions of that, where our vision is becoming more common, and as it sort of emerges on the page, and I know there's so much more to do. At least we have that sort of first layer of there are ideas and stuff that we've all agreed on that are fundamental, and so that to me is like that's a great start. And a lot of what we want to do can't happen without it. So the fact that we have that now is like, okay, now we've been talking about this a long time, and now we're actually in a sort of development process, formally, starting at the base level, which was us, which I thought was so so apt. Also, like all of us, I've been going on and on about community, and what was good was another thing we sort of all landed on together is the recognition of one, the sort of narrowly focused community of audio engineers and the generations of audio engineers to come, and then all they have in common with other creatives and creatives who are to come in generations to come. And how some of this stuff applies more broadly. But to start thinking in terms of a community and have all four of us thinking on that level, to me, like, I think the entire community has a responsibility to look after itself.
Yeah.
And
that was really deep.
We're the ones articulating this right now, and I'm sure there are others who are thinking this way, and we're going to find them. But that conception of us as a community, not us here behind the microphone and listeners out there. It's like, no, we're all sort of in this common project of bringing sound to the world, human connection, music, this thing that binds us all, this thing that's so important to human existence and our well-being. And audio engineers are the facilitator of that connection. To me, it's like a very important thing. So for us to be sort of conceiving of this as a community project is really important to me. And that's where I get a lot of energy. And again, this stuff isn't decided. It's not decided yet, but it feels like like we accomplished something. Do you know what I mean? It like feels like the first of many necessary steps to really, like, when we were there, drawing various aspects of the podcast, the way it works, the sort of cultural interactions, the way ideas spread, and this sort of thing. And as we're modeling it out, it hit me that what we're really doing is trying to create a machine. It's a system. It's like a machine that makes the world better in like this small pocket of the world. Do you know what I mean? It's like our sphere, like we're doing it for each other, right? It's a sort of simpler machine. We're just sort of...
we all need it.
We have this robust, high-stakes dialogue. We're trying to make sense, and we're taking chances. We're often wrong. And, so how can we build on this machine? How can we expand it so that we can have a much longer lever to pull on? It's just inspiring. It feels good to be on the same page. Just at a basic level, it just feels good to be unified in a vision.
Yeah.
I don't really have like a lot of detail about it.
That was pretty detailed.
After a long riff.
Yeah, that was good.
It's pretty well like aerial view of the actuality of it. But
I think something that you're getting at is this idea of like a not solid form that emerged. It was like when you think of like outcomes from a workshop, and I deal with this pretty much every time is like, what do I get out of the workshop? And I'm like, you understand yourself better. And it's like, yeah, like, do I get a cup? You know, like I want a fucking object. I want to know that I got a thing.
Yeah.
Do I get a wave file? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do I get a thing? And I would call those solid forms, right? And then there's these sort of liquid or gaseous forms. Look that up. That's a real word. I'm positive.
Yeah, it is.
That like, you know, don't have solidity, but are still forms nonetheless. And I think workshops can have both and things in between. I think where we got in those 2 days was a more gaseous form of that. You know, we have the ideas, they're still floating, but they're a lot tighter than like, you know, they're a lot tighter than other gases and a lot looser than most solid
It's not a
forms.
mission statement or a vision statement, but it is the building blocks of one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is a mission there in some ways, or there's some things that could lead to that. There's not necessarily a vision per se, but there's elements that could allude to it. And so we did nothing basically, guys. That's what we're trying to. But I think it's important to recognize that as sometimes like some of this work is meant to not produce solid forms, right? It's meant to kind of produce more ambiguity or less ambiguity, but like still not, you know, it's a solid form. But I think clarity of vision is one of those things that is not a solid form that you can just deliver to someone. Like I'm going to send you an MP3. You will then have clarity of your vision. You could replay that. Everyone will know it and understand it. And like, that's something that always comes away from these workshops is like, I understand my business better, or I was just speaking to this person and I was able to like be more confident or whatever it may be. And I think that is definitely something that came out of this, both on the interviews that we've done or during Art Club or the lives that I recently started. Like there's more of a clarity around purpose. What that manifests into is one, up to us as individuals, and two, up to the group as a group. So I feel like clarity of vision gets undervalued all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, I'm paying, you know, 10 grand for clarity. Like, I get it.
Isn't that what you pay Serban for a mix for clarity?
You know, but it's like, you are. Because what clarity can do is beyond what a lot of people realize. And the level of clarity that you can go and achieve, I don't think people realize. So I think
bringing clarity makes something real or not.
You get in a boat with 6 people. You've got to all want to go in the same direction, put your oars in the water, and fucking row in sync.
Yeah.
It's got to be in sync. You can 3 of you can be rowing really hard, the other 3 rowing really hard the opposite direction, get nowhere. The guys on this side can be pulling this way and the boat is going around in circles. The whole point is to get people to harness our collective energies so that we can move towards something.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that I think this weekend was a lot about, hey, do you like oars? I like oars. How do you feel about boats? Boats are fucking great. Get in the boat. Okay, are we all in the boat? 6 of us in the boat. Okay, this is great.
I'm in the boat.
Yeah, we like, what about this direction broadly? Like, let's go north.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
We got that.
North-ish.
Yeah, exactly. So we're and that's why when we were texting last night, you know, it's like refining this language, and I just stopped replying because it was like, hey, writing, we were talking about writing, finishing the copy. And to me, you know, what I was thinking is writing is easy, thinking is hard.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a potent idea, we can punch up the writing of it in 10 minutes. Any of us, or all of us together, even better, right? Thinking, real thinking, refining, making new ideas, shaping stuff, that's hard and slow. And that's what we're in the process of. So I think we got, my feeling on where we landed at the weekend was sort of cohering the team, sort of that commitment to that level of work. It was kind of a boot camp of sorts,
Yes.
of kind of like Hell Week. It's like it was Hell Weekend with lots of nice wine, you know.
And a pool.
But it was kind of like, it was a statement of kind of like, this is This is the level of rigor with which we plan to do this. So, like, if
set
you,
out as you plan to go on,
yeah,
kind of thing.
and if one of us is like, no, I'm not happy until we're actually bleeding, it's like, well, you're too hardcore for this, right? Or if one of us is like, I really like laying in the sun all day, it's like, well, you want a different thing, you're too lazy or whatever. But we get everyone on the same page, and I think we're in the process of sort of distilling down this value set and understanding that, like, I think we're clear that right now, tomorrow, this is the most important thing we can do is distill this vision and this kind of mission and this understanding of what we're about. The business aspect of it will come later, and will be built on this strong foundation, a strong understanding of who we are, a strong understanding of how we work together, a strong understanding of our mission or our vision. And then you, as you say, you play with form. We run a bunch of experiments alongside it, and then we build something to help it sustain. A way that can allow us
and
the
we
time
can't
to do
just
this.
wing it because we're trying to do something hard. Like what Roy was saying about getting 6 people in a boat rowing in the same direction. I mean, we're not just trying to go. We're trying. This is like Olympics.
Yeah, we're
you know what I mean. This is
high stakes.
and not that we're competing against something else, but we are counteracting a sort of broad cultural reality that is an impedance to young creative people, especially who are trying to get started, right? So we're trying to support a community, help the community to cohere to a meaningful level, despite everything about the world that's pulling people apart. So you're not just going to wing it, right? You need to organize and you need to strategize. And, so for me, that all of you guys were willing to go that deep and that hard just empowered me to go even further. Do you know what I mean? It was really like a pressure testing of ourselves and these ideas and whether or not we feel like we could live in a tour bus together for weeks on end if we wanted to and not like kill each other.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's the analog, I guess.
I came away like, let's fucking go.
As Eric Weinstein would put it, feels like there's adults in the room. Like this is not something that teenage kids do when they get together in a band. Like we don't have time to fuck around. We all have businesses that we do, and if we're gonna do this, we have to do it right, and we have to have a consensus alignment and row the boat together. So it just feels like adults in the room. We fucked around, we drank wine, but I felt
that was all to add to the inspiration and to the main project.
But that's what I mean. It felt different than like I'm 18 and I want to start a band, or I'm 13 and I want to. I've been in so many bands that just didn't work out, obviously, and there's bands that are successful and worked out, and Daft Punk, has lasted forever up until now, whatever. That story is heroic to some degree. This is just different, and I feel like I learned a bit more about myself in that sense. That's why I started with the word commitment, where that's something that I've been working on for years. And I've been a one-man show for a while. I've struggled with similar leadership insecurities like Michael, but I've also trained to the successful engineers that are out in the world doing their own thing, and I'm clearly capable of doing it. I just never really pinpointed the want or how to do it, and these are all insecurities that I'm trying to overcome, and committing to a band would be another one, and felt like I did it. So I'm in. If we're here to say things like, I was already in.
We got our.
I kind of started it really, and I'm like with this dude, like I'm in. Because there's really nothing else I want to do on Wednesday night. And there's really nothing I wanted to do all day today except for listen to other people talk so I can be better at talking tonight. And thankfully, I only had a few notes and was up at 6 o'clock this morning or 6:30. Did that, didn't have to do a home mix today. Could wait till tomorrow. There was no rush. I could mix tomorrow. So I could read and listen and try to prepare for tonight and reflect on the weekend to have, so that's really what I want to do with our time together, my time, on a whole day like today. Profound takeaways for me on what it means to commit and align.
Moment of silence.
You can't talk in the moment of silence, and it's not a moment of silence
That's
anymore.
what I do. I make jokes. People love me for it. They write in. They
Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it.
The amount of fan mail I get for jokes like this, you wouldn't believe it.
It's all from people who are hurting, who are afraid of the silence. They're just
Look.
It's a dark joke.
Spider has.
We won't be getting letters about that joke.
Spider has been kind of, for better, there is no for worse here, harping on the idea that audio engineers tend to be lost, tend to have no clear and obvious direction in our field, and again, it's non-linear, so you can have peaks and valleys all over the place, and there's just no real kind of pressure testing or barometer for like what it means to have success in this industry, and I think we can try to tease it out. So I think that's what we're going to try to do and bring on people. Like I can't wait to have Tabron on, right? Like I think Tabron is would be an advocate for this way of thinking. I think he's one of the last kind of educators, kind of especially in New York, and has trained so many amazing engineers that have come out of his school. He should have a name for his school. People like that, are of high interest to me in conversating with, and
it sort of goes to the thing. I think, I don't know how many times I brought it up now on the podcast, but
bring it up again.
This thing about like, it's not only about what you do, it's the going through it together. Driving out to the desert together. We all could have gone in separate cars, but like the fact that we just did it together, the fact that we did the weekend together,
both with non-emission
generating.
It was very important theme in the weekend. Yeah,
zero emissions.
Zero emissions.
Conversations.
Low carb diet.
Desert retreat. Winter retreat.
Didn't break. There was not a carb in sight.
Yeah. Carbon free. But the
carbon.
Yeah. But the just doing things together, right? So that's the thing about everyone working separately and sitting in front of computers all day. It's like just being in the room next to somebody, having lunch, showing up, doing the mundane shit. Like there's so much value in it that I don't think we quite understand.
Love mixing with Mike Miller in the room, just like love that the whole Tony atmosphere that we all had and cultivated, and that's where it kind of started.
It all adds up, like day after day. It just all adds up.
We did an art club, co-working club on Monday leading up to art club. So all day from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. was art club. It was awesome. Like I was working on the PMC designs. People were working on portfolios and their business app design and a business model. And like everyone was together. We all shared what we were working on. And then we just had the screen up. My buddy Rob like put on some YouTube video of this like 3-hour performance in Iceland on like these two artists, FKJ or something.
FKJ.
FKJ?
That sounds familiar.
Fucking awesome. They're playing in Iceland. I'll find the video.
Yeah.
They're like on a platform floating. Icebergs are all around them. Icebergs?
Sorry, no, keep going.
Is that the word?
Iceberg.
I'm just seeing Eurovision, like the movie, and Will Ferrell like floating right now.
I hesitated on the word iceberg. I don't think I've ever really said that in a sentence.
They're like mini glaciers.
What do you mean? There's probably icebergs.
I don't really talk about icebergs floating around that often out here. So they're on a platform. Icebergs are all around. There's just like endless ocean.
Wind.
And they're playing for like 3 hours, just like a jam, like programming. It was insane. So that was up playing. And then we're all just working. And then occasionally we check in and someone had a question about like, what to put in a resume, and you can make breakout rooms. So like people went into a breakout room and talked about it, and like I jumped in there and saw what they were talking about, jumped back into the room. At the end of it, we all recapped like how it went, and it's just everyone felt better. Like just how we worked that day, just knowing that people were there. Like I got up, made food, came back, and there's people there, and that it makes a difference,
it makes a difference for those that thrive that way. You know, they're
Yeah.
right. Some people maybe just want to.
I'm talking about those people. Those are my people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I would
I'm
say
voicing the other.
Almost everybody.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I would say almost everybody.
yeah.
What?
Yeah, like maybe only people like maybe on the spectrum
Mm.
that don't have the empathic neurology that would propagate that need for human connection. There are many solitary humans.
Mm.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. And obviously, I think
Everyone has different levels, obviously.
what you
Yeah,
might
yeah.
mean is like, yeah, if people are making a ton of noise or like,
Well,
you know,
I'm thinking of like
operating-
a legal aspect of it too. Like, there's just no way that I could collaborate with people on
Right.
live stream.
Oh yeah, not exactly in that form.
But no,
Right,
I'm.
right,
but
right.
just
Different
togetherness.
forms.
So,
in
Yeah.
general.
but there's a responsibility that comes with that would make someone like me more isolated in my creative process by necessity, not wanting it, but would have to, and that's just another.
But I mean,
And
that's
then
what Mike Miller is doing. And that forum of him sitting on the couch is
Yeah.
the same forum
With a
as
trusted
the group.
understanding source that you can't talk about what's
Yeah.
happening, and
The same way I didn't like screen share as I'm doing it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
because like there's promotions going out that people don't know about. You know what I mean? Like I can't share that
Yeah.
publicly. But yeah, so confidentiality is the thing for
yeah.
sure.
I guess that's what I'm talking about.
yeah,
but
yeah,
then
yeah, totally.
Not saying
that was just zooming out.
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
too fast.
Yeah, I think, but having people around it totally like it was the most fluid version of designing for this because like there was just like this additional energy there, like motivating energy of just like there's people there, like we're working, everyone's working, we're all trying to perform well for each other. We're about to talk for 2 hours after this, like, and everyone was just like on their A game.
It's such a cool format.
It's
it's really cool
nice.
format. I'm going to devil's advocate one more time. Just going to push back one more time. So, what about overly insecure artist that is putting the pen to the page for the first time? Might not want to share that experience with
We
six
have-
other people.
We have some
Sounds like the
overly
time to do it.
insecure artists on the.
It sounds like that could be
yeah.
the time to do it, or sounds
Yeah.
like it's not the time to do
Yeah.
it. Right? There's
Sooner the better.
Then you want to put someone super supportive on the team.
Yeah.
Who's cheerleading and taking risks, demonstrating that it's okay. You know.
Yeah.
I there's
That's what I mean. The culture.
yeah.
so you guys see only positives to this. Is
I mean, I'm sure there are negatives.
I mean, I'm with Spider. We zoom out for a second. We're not saying that we should all live our work lives on Zoom. It's not practical. You know, your Zoom is too noisy. We can't Zoom together while we're
I know,
you're
latency,
mixing it
latency.
and I'm mastering. It's gonna be
you can
not
start and stop.
yeah.
yeah. So, but
I'm Lex Friedmaning here. I'm asking a naive question just to spark something more because I don't necessarily know if that's like the optimal way to create when you want to hunker down and be private about what you're about to
well,
make.
let's ask a question.
Yeah.
Let's generalize it. Let's just say in America, are Americans connected enough?
No,
No.
We should do things to connect more.
feel you.
You know,
Sold.
and that's what this
Yes.
in Michael's design space, which is something where they're not making a bunch of noise and they're working on screens. They're mostly isolated in little white boxes all over the country. This is a good form for that.
Absolutely.
And
I'm envious of the ability and platform to do that.
you
Yeah.
and I make noise for a living, so this is a good form
Yeah,
for us connecting.
that's what I'm saying.
Or having dinner.
We're doing a version
And
of it right now.
You and I, Spider, connect on long form teasing out of ideas. So we jump on the phone like yesterday.
Yeah.
A meeting turned into an extra hour on a Google Meet. I'm driving around with the video muted, and we're just teasing out stuff.
Yeah.
And it just set me up.
Yeah.
I'm in the FedEx office, apologizing to the guy while Spider's going big in my head with an idea, and but I go home and I'm up, I'm elevated after that. I'm not drained after that. I'm coming
course.
home feeling excited and connected. You know, so we'll. There's lots of different forms for this, but just the Spider's right. I've put more of a point on this on other episodes. There is a very clear incentive for industry to separate us. If we all make a record together, we need my laptop and my Pro Tools. If Spider remote works, now we have 2 laptops and 2 Pro Tools. If the 4 of us remote work and we're making a record, 4 laptops, 4 Pro Tools, 4 Fab Filter licenses, 4 and on and on and on. Just a very simple model of like, if we can separate people into separate boxes with separate cars, separate health insurance, put your kid over here, the family here, we can sell them more stuff. So there's a massive incentive
there's so many forces pulling us apart.
Well, yeah, and you're tapping into this, if I'm a company saying, don't you want to be independent? Free yourself from the constraints of whatever, right?
People.
And so there's a desire, especially again, we're talking about American culture, to be a pioneer, to be unconstrained, to be free. So I think that what Michael is driving at is just an antidote to that, a kind of not even an antidote, that makes it antidote is for poison. It's a counterbalance. It's a sort of, and it's very much in line with how humans have lived forever. It's very rare for one dude to live in a cave on his own.
Yeah.
They lived as part of tribes and communities. I mean, I'm sure I have a overly simplistic understanding of ancient history, but I think it's fair to say that the people who survived did so in groups and families and tribes, and we've lost that.
Yeah, there are myriad forces that make community difficult in a meaningful sense. There is a pro audio community. We are not cohered in a way that's meaningful and fulfilling to us, in a way that sustains the institutions that shape the young people into being excellent. So that's the challenge, is like, how do we counteract the cultural forces to create a cultural center of gravity or a cultural movement where we can combine forces and organize in a more meaningful, fulfilling way, and maybe create a new institution or shape institutions, bring to light this sort of deficit and the impact it's having on our field.
And well-being.
Yeah, and well, that's the bottom line, right? It's our individual well-being is sort of is on one side of the equation with our sort of group health, the health of our institutions. It's all reciprocal, right? It's like an institution cannot survive without input from individuals, and it won't survive unless it's providing something to those individuals. There needs to be a reciprocal relationship between individuals and institutions. And I don't know how the podcast fits into all that, but we're sort of looking at this community and looking at us and what we stand for, and doing our best, meaning we are committed and spending many hours of our lives trying to make sense of the moment, of this situation, of this field, career, however you want to look at it, and the broader world, so that we can better navigate. And it's, it is sort of like facing the wind in a way, culturally speaking. But at the same time, we have all of the evidence of what we've already accomplished together, and like the sort of benefits we've each experienced in our relationships in the various configurations. I mean, John and I have a certain relationship. Rory and I have a different trajectory. Michael and John have a long trajectory. The benefits of talking this way and attempting to make sense, and each going out into the world like John does. So John does in probably the highest volume, highest energy way, is go into the world and gather cool ideas and bring them back to the table.
I was just about to add to that, which is using a word from earlier in the discussion, but demonstrate. I mean, we're here to demonstrate. I don't know how else to do it but to make the demo. Again, like you just said, in a myriad of ways, where forced, added pandemic to disconnect, and we're demonstrating ways to connect. And I don't know about, I'll speak for Rory too here, because we're both not like as good at social media as the both of you, but I'm doing all right on my Tuesdays, right? So I can give that. I can't commit to jumping on your after dinner drinks on Monday night, because Monday night's like my alone night, and I'm like already don't have any clothes on by myself, like going to bed. Sorry guys, TMI. Or laying in bed listening to a podcast. I'm like, do I put a shirt on to jump on the live? Can I come on without a shirt on? Like, I have this conundrum on Monday nights. Like, what do I do? Do I jump on?
Do we need to come over here and dress
But I don't
you?
want
Is that what
to.
you're saying?
But what I'm certain of on Monday night is I don't really want to be on my phone, right? So that's the one. But it sucks that that's the night that you've chosen to do this, and it doesn't suck that you've chosen it. That's great that it's happening. But for me personally, and the way it affects me is it's not a positive generating experience, because I feel like I'm not contributing there, but I'm contributing in my own ways. So that's what we're doing. We're out there demonstrating, and gonna continue to do so. I'm actually excited about other ways to do it too. I mean, Matt's been hitting me up on other ways we can talk about other things, like the way we do, and not even in music related, like whatever we want to talk about. And
I like the idea of sort of, us looking at the incentive structures. So you think of a very simple thing. Michael has been talking a lot, with Ethan last week and about the weekend about vulnerability, and that's something that honesty, is something, like I said, I'm happy to die on that hill if that's what we're doing, right? And Spider has expressed concerns around sort of what the vulnerability, the word and the feeling around it. And that's a longer conversation.
Yeah, I don't know what it means.
Yeah, I think that's
what people mean when they say.
Yeah, I think there's a point there. I think, and we will. But I think what is interesting is right now the let's say the music business, or Instagram is where we show it. There is an incentive to front. I had conversations this week with 2 or 3 different engineers, some of whom with Grammys, who on paper and on Instagram are crushing, and in real life are struggling a lot, and but don't have any framework to share it, and don't really are sort of in ivory towers where they can't, of various sizes and shapes, where they can't.
Or they believe they can.
Yeah,
of course they can't because they believe they can.
Well, they can because they were talking to me. So right, but they feel that this is rare. So something simple that we can do is sort of recalibrate the incentive structure to say, hey, sharing when you're struggling unburdens you and helps hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, the simple imposter syndrome conversation from Ethan last week. It's like, here's a guy doing amazing work, struggling with a classic human thing, right? And hearing that will help people. It just will.
Yes.
And him going on Instagram with a gold tooth and a new Benz, like, doesn't help people. Right? That's a funny image, Ethan.
So I want to Photoshop it.
We want to take Ethan.
I think if Ethan did that, it could help a lot of people.
Maybe
that's pretty hilarious.
It would actually make my day. Yeah. But, basically fronting, and we know the kinds of people I'm talking about. We have mental images here. Fronting on Instagram ultimately is an empty experience for both the fronter and the people receiving it.
The front edge.
And then sharing within reason is valuable for both parties.
And then the leaders in the field become leaders because they're the best fronters and not the most ethical leaders, right? Which is sort of Noah's point from the other night. It's like to have something sustainable, you need that ethical leadership in place that people can look to and orient to.
Which we've got to get Dylan on to tease out why it's okay. Dylan has a point of view that we should celebrate their success, and I'm like, not if it's not built on reality. You know what I mean? That's a good debate to be had there another time.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's a simple, just that mechanism that I just described. We can do something to change that incentive structure in our small corner of the business, right? And I think that has real value. And if we can do that around other things, like the incentive to fill a rack with bullshit outboard instead of getting your monitoring dialed in first. Like, it's a simple thing. We don't want to go there too much here on the podcast, but that's an incentive that we're actively, so that people are like, got my monitoring sorted, like, and that becomes like,
That's what we're demonstrating.
thumbs
That's
up.
how we all
like,
live. Yeah.
way to go. You're doing the basics.
Expresses
you know.
values.
Yeah. It's like, you want to go somewhere, you got up off your chair. You've done the first thing you should do.
Yeah.
So again, sort of helping establish new norms, new incentives.
New norms.
Because, when like people posting about buying new plugins or whatever, it's like, it's empty again for both the person posting and the people receiving it. So I see that as an important part of what we're doing. And asking tough questions that even if we don't know the answers for us or there are no answers, that they sort of provoke thought.
I mean, people, you're talking about new norms. You're seeing people posting desks they don't have.
Yeah.
There's just no desk there where a desk used to be.
Yeah. It's great.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's a picture of nothing.
Yeah.
Negative space.
That's what I mean. It's the absence of something that they're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of amazing because it really goes against the buy the thing culture. Like buying the thing is the answer.
Yeah.
It's like actually getting it out of the room is the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody's selling that.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting example, and we're seeing it happen more and more.
Yeah.
It's a small little wave that's sort of gathering energy.
Shout out Jesse Ray.
Seriously.
So yeah, I mean, we're it's time to wrap up.
We still don't know what happened in the desert, I guess.
Well, I know for me personally, I mean, Michael alluded to it earlier, I feel, and I've said this to probably all of you individually, I feel in some ways much lighter having come home from the desert, and in other ways sort of like less so, and I'm just feel like I'm just still processing, and I'm still like the three words that we ended up with, the good faith, sense making, high stakes, good faith, sense making, whatever order you want to put them in. Mm-hmm. I'm making peace with the high stakes bit, and sort of, I'm processing how we ended up with high stakes in there, and community got jettisoned somewhere along the way. When community is, say, tonight has been an important part of the thing, or I'm asking questions like, well, if the stakes got higher, would I be more interested?
But it's all for the community.
Yeah,
it's whatever you just said for the.
This is the stuff that I'm doing in my mind, and sort of like, to me, high
community
stakes
is what we are.
High stakes, like you said, vulnerability is kind of, what does it mean? It's kind of a non-word to you, right? Mm-hmm. To me, high stakes feels like that. And then, but if we swapped in meaningful work, then tonight was meaningful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's meaningful. We will get feedback that it was meaningful to whoever listens.
Yeah.
Some people, and the project at large the project that we're embarking on is meaningful. So in my mind, I'm sort of saying, well, okay, high stakes is the word that connects for the guys, but really to me it means meaningful, and I'm doing that kind of processing.
It doesn't mean that.
It doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
No, the stakes are high. It's a high wire act, right? You're doing your best to stand up, to stay put up there. Like everything is that serious. There's a responsibility to form to.
I'm a little bit more in like crisis management. Like I think this isolation thing is a serious problem. I think there are real health and mental health problems associated with it. I think it's a serious problem.
Yeah.
Isolation. I mean, I've seen some recent statistics about anxiety and depression from this time last year.
Sure.
Some crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
So the high stakes thing is more the mindset that I go into sentiment. That's why I'm willing to go so far and so hard on ideas for so long to try to get somewhere with them. It's meaning, we can have meaningful conversation that is relaxed and slow and not urgent.
Okay, so
you know what I mean?
But all right, let's do it for a minute.
Yeah, we got
so
time.
high stakes for a second. So if high stakes is the motivating thing, and I'm not looking to unpack the work we did at the weekend because I'm really happy with it. But if high stakes is the motivating thing, so this isolation, the effect on well-being, the thing you just described, then let's put aside any skepticism about the data or whatever. 500,000 people have died from COVID. It is higher stakes. They are higher stakes than the well-being,
I disagree totally.
Okay, pick
COVID is
a million people dying of famine. We're putting a day a week into this podcast collectively, in terms of our output. So if I find you something higher stakes, will we jump to that?
No.
No, we won't. We're doing this because we like it, right?
I feel like
but it's high stakes in like, as you put it, our corner of the business, right?
Yes.
This business could not, the business of audio engineers specifically could not exist in 5 more years, 10 more years.
But it's a characterization.
In the way that we know of it and love it. Like, records aren't sounding better now than they did in the 60s. There's been a steady decline of what it means to take our position seriously. Mixed with Spider, I like Spider's bit too. I see it more from this angle of which we talked about in the desert.
There are a lot of angles.
There's a lot of angles to see this. Like, there's a responsibility to share the knowledge of the craft. Like Tony put it up here in his conversation with us. This is not going to be in a book, and we have to pass these theories on, these practices on, because they're not being taught in schools. They're not. There's very little mentorship, pandemic aside. There's not a lot of hands-on experience with a mentor, even if you're lucky enough to have one, to actually get to whatever. I can harp on what there isn't for days, and I'll use another forum to do that. But I see the chance of it non-existing as high stakes. And to almost, for me, I always talk about this in my enthusiastic ways of like adding a cool factor back to engineering and wanting to hold it in a coveted role and position equal to the producer credit, and not being an engineer until you can be a producer. And I see the community of engineers coming together and rallying for the importance of engineering specifically, and it being a creative, balanced with service position and catering towards the artist and this language development and all the things that I bet they were talking about in the 60s, in the 30s.
This is great. So we've give me a second.
Because I've got a thing.
You've got Spider has sort of encapsulated quickly what high stakes means to him in terms of this.
I haven't.
No, you haven't. Okay,
There's more.
Say it. Okay.
So there's the context, which I think again, I'm thinking as a community. It's not me. It's not us sitting here. It's us as a community, us included, right? There's the context that we're sort of describing. There are all these sort of issues we're facing together. There's, knowledge that's going to die with people. It's not being passed down. Right? There's techniques and approach. There's all kinds of stuff that isn't being passed down. And, the world changes. We don't have blacksmiths. Like, this is going to happen, right? There are a lot of serious sort of issues that the community's facing. There's context. Just put it that way. But then there's like, there's sense making, right? There's sort of, I look at the high stakes word in the context with the other words, good faith and sense making, as high stakes is sort of a style of sense making. It's about serious things. It's like we sort of go to the limits of our capacity in the process of sense making. That would be almost silly if there weren't like real consequences associated with
That's
them.
what I meant about the high wire act.
So the context, the landscape of challenge the community faces is reflected in the approach and the attitude of the sense making, right? It's not like you can just take high stakes as a concept and divorce it from sense making.
Yeah, right.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
It's sense making in good faith. That can take on a lot of forms, but this robustness, like that's part of the stakes atmosphere. You see what I mean? So maybe robust is like the.
Well, now I know why it seems redundant to me, because it's like we should write in good faith, sense making, high stakes with our hearts beating. That's the only way I know how to do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So it's completely redundant to me. It's like saying that I'm a guy, like you know, it's like, yes, we
Yeah,
know.
but that's not
But that's
natural
Michael's
to every.
success.
Yeah.
But that's Michael's success, that what we landed on embodies us.
And,
Yes,
and,
yeah.
Or we embody what
Yeah.
we landed on.
And I
You see what
always
mean?
loved, I used to, when I was younger, use the term, it goes without saying, or it should go without saying. Like, nothing goes without saying. You have to say things.
Yeah,
Like,
not when you have to write a mission statement.
yeah.
Nothing goes without saying.
Yeah. That's good.
But if there's a better terminology than high stakes, I mean,
No,
by all means.
This is the stuff I've been teasing out in my brain since we came
I mean,
home.
how would
Yeah.
you describe this sort of robust, almost athletic,
I don't-
jiu-jitsu
I
level
don't-
sort of conversation?
I don't
you
know that. I mean, that's just
That's you.
that's me.
Jiu-jitsu
I
is
know,
high
yeah.
the way,
stakes.
that's the only way I know how to engage with stuff.
Yeah.
And you know,
It resonates with me in the severity that I feel and the seriousness that I take of my role and responsibility.
yeah, I like that framing. What
you know.
what does it mean to you, Michael? In like now, say today, after, in the context of the podcast, I like both the guys' framing of it.
Yeah, I mean, you and I spoke about this on the weekend. I think I totally agree with what both of them were saying. Honestly, like, it is high stakes, and it should be noted because of the impact that we're trying to have in these specific areas that we're trying to impact. If it was like, like the coding outside of cables, like it's black, we're trying to change it to red for no reason. It's not really that high
Arbitrary,
stakes.
yeah.
If we were going on every night, like, everyone better fucking change this or else, like, not really that important.
Yeah,
We're talking about people's lives, their well-being, forcing them to ask questions of things that they may never have, which could lead to really endless outcomes. I'm speaking to people all the time who listen, and it's having a profound impact on them, making them rethink what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it. And that, to me, that's high stakes.
Yeah, that's serious responsibility.
And finding support. I mean, this word support has emerged in the last couple of weeks. I get very uncomfortable when I hear people, podcasters, public figures talking about changing other people through their work. I think in our community, our common ground is the desire to be good at audio engineering. Like, it's already there. Like, the natural resource exists, and what people need is support. They're trying to navigate a very messy information space, flooded, just overloaded with information and contradicting ideas and a lot of myths right. So they're trying to make sense of this, and they need the space and the framework and the space to exercise and to practice and to get better and to feel their own sense of mastery. Like, they don't need to be manipulated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they need the room and the space and the sort of guidance, support. Like, it's not a top-down control thing. It's a bottom-up enabling thing, empowering people. And so, like, helping people get out of their own way, or whatever the dimension is, it just can't be about control.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I get nervous the way
That
way people talk about
that was
having impact.
the whole theme for me of like, well, why don't you have anything in the world that people can find online? It's like, because I don't want to be I don't consider myself an expert. And it's like, well, okay, so don't be an expert. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Explore topics.
Yeah.
Be curious on mic.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing.
Just being out in the world and questioning things, that's a way of supporting other people.
It seems so, because
Yeah.
people are reacting to it. And
Yeah.
it's a much more comfortable place for me to be.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be.
And like John says, a lot of this is solitary work. It's like, so to shut out the world and do a mix, you need the feedback. Like you need mechanisms that are gonna fulfill your human needs, right? In order to develop that thing, you need a kind of support at a human level, and it's fine to get that from family, but to be a part of a network of people who share that sort of I use this word occupation. It's got so much meaning to me. It's like this sort of thing that you can sort of imagine like some person who learns to make samurai swords.
Mm-hmm.
When they're young, they apprentice and they do this thing and they perfect this thing, this sort of caricature.
Mm-hmm.
But occupation, like people who share that occupation, they're like, that's that professional common ground. There's sort of professional relationships. To not have that in an active and meaningful way, it just seems like a waste. It just seems like a totally lost opportunity. And really it's for the field. It's how else do high standards exist?
Dude.
You know what I mean? Like
Michael sent the photo today, man. We were doing it up here. We had the people coming over talking about the records they were working on, talking about their experiences, feeling free and open to discuss hardships in the community, in the occupation. And it wasn't a fucking therapy session. It wasn't venting. It wasn't like people. I mean, it was a little bit of that, but it was just a place to come talk and eat. And it's just, man, fuck this pandemic,
But then when people leave, they're on DM groups together.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
Like, it's all the cross-pollination and like once in a while, 2 or 3 people are going to meet through the network and then form a thing.
Not once in a while. It happened all the time.
Yeah,
Engineers were in the rooms with other producers that they met through someone that needed an engineer here. Like it was happening. It was actually, I mean, I'm sure it's still happening to some degree, but not as rapid.
Still happening. I saw Hector on a live today with JC Derricks, and it's like, it's like these.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
it's
sick.
like, just saw a screenshot of it, or they were on a FaceTime or something. But yeah, there's lots of sort of nodes in the community that are connecting and interconnecting in really interesting ways. We're finding more and more sort of every time we connect to someone, they know 3 other people in our network.
Sick.
Sometimes in really funny ways,
Yeah.
It's really wild to me, the feeling that I get when I see people realize that they know each other, that other people know the same people.
Yeah.
Because we're all so separated. It's like, oh, you know him, and oh yeah, and that dude knows him, and that. Like, if there was some way that we could visualize the way we're all connected, it would be stunning to everyone. Because we only see each other like 1, 2, 3 at a time.
Well, that is the benefit. Like going back just a little bit about like the Instagram versus Clubhouse, like audio only, video thing. Like I love when I'm in the Instagram chat and someone's like, yo, usual suspects. And it's just like someone that I've never even heard of. I have no idea, but I've seen their name in the thing and so recognize the name of that person. Like, do they even know that person? I don't know. Spider's up in here. Like OG Volta pops in. Alex Toomey jumped in for the first time the other day. Like people are just, Ryan Lewis just harping on me about waves coming in. Like this is what it's all about. So that's what I like about the Instagram part of the platform is like that integration and that understand, like, what are your names? Who are these people?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize the benefits that I could even get from it. I get a lot of joy from that, So I love it. Do we answer your question, Rory?
Really well. Yeah, I have much more comfort with high stakes right now.
We don't want you to have comfort.
Than I did.
I like you when you're uncomfortable.
As an orphan concept, your trepidation makes total sense.
Well,
if it's not attached to the...
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I was working on this last week is sort of what are the connections to things I understand? Because I'm not... It arrived at the bottom of this process. We distilled down to this for a reason. So I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah, it's like
I'm not trying to unpack it or second guess it. It is the answer.
Yeah.
This is the result of the
Yeah.
equation. So
Yeah.
so it's like, well, what does it mean? How do I map it onto my understanding? And everything you all three have said makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, for me, that
Hold on. Could I interrupt for a second? Instead of speaking in terms of why you disagree with it, where is it sitting right in your head where you're like, this does sit well? What parts of it are you encoding that do sit well? And do
You're asking me
resonate
to
with you?
steel man it?
Yeah.
A little early for that.
Come back next week.
Yeah, maybe next week.
And we just said a bunch of shit, so
Yeah.
I
Anything
think
there?
I think that
anything good?
no, all of it makes a lot of sense to me.
You need help? I have a
but
dictionary.
Rory already said this is just the way he is.
Yes.
I mean, he's already validated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like, yeah, and yeah, it's just how I approach stuff. If we're doing the master, I want it to be the best it can be. If we're tuning the speakers, I want it to be the best it can be. Or working on a circuit, like if I'm calibrating something today, I was calibrating some speakers for a friend, and fuck me, it drove me crazy. The no need to mention the brand and what I was trying to do, but it was infuriating. And you know what I was dealing with, Spider, and it was just like fucking around with this. And what actually was a really interesting sidebar is that I understood in making this change to this particular speaker that it was actually something I had been frustrated with for a while. I realized right in that moment that it's an incredibly well engineered system. The all of the trade-offs and the things they've balanced to make this product, it's really, really well done. And if you try and optimize anything, any aspect of it a little bit more, it falls apart. So what I realized today is that my bar for what this product can do will never be reached. It's not in the box. It's beautifully engineered to a point.
Yes.
And it was I had that sort of understanding of like, oh, okay, so stop beating on it for trying, to be something that it'll never be,
Oh my God. So
but-
many mixes.
but
So many
mixes.
things there.
the rigor with which I went at dialing this thing in within the time frame I had, that's just the way I do it. There is no kind of like,
It's more than
Hold on,
that.
hold on,
Well,
hold
it's
on.
more than that.
Hold
We
on.
take
There's some-
pleasure in going that
Yes.
hard.
Yes. Why do you think that came to the top then? Because we all share that.
yeah, no, I don't,
That's
again,
exactly why it's there.
but this is what I was saying to Michael on the thread last night, asking a question for me is not undermining the idea.
Of course not.
It's just it's deepening my understanding of the language. And there are certain words that just I don't like the sound of the word. It doesn't roll off my tongue.
Steak? You don't
Yeah,
like
steak is not a word that I like.
It's a very meaty word.
But the all of the concepts you guys have described. So, yeah, I mean,
Steak? It's a tight word.
no, it's not a word I like the sound of.
Let's look it up.
The definition of a steak, it's a big chunk of meat on your plate.
I
bro.
know.
No, it goes through your heart.
Goes through your heart.
Yeah. No, anyway, but your question is good, Michael, and I don't really have an answer, and I'm not sure that I will. Honestly, I just there's a part of it that's like one night I disqualified John on a certain question. It became sort of a joke for that evening. I was saying you're disqualified from this, and I think maybe I'm disqualified from the talking about high stakes because it's something that I have either a blind spot to or a natural aptitude for, or something that makes it sort of seem redundant to me, or seem wasteful. I'm looking at that slot going,
What else can we put there?
how did community not end up in that slot? And Spider has made a really good argument that the community is one of the
We
elements
are
of high stakes.
community.
John is saying the art of this thing, the craft, blacksmiths are gone, right? But John is saying
Lasting
we
effects.
don't want this to go because this changed all of our lives. These records mean something to us, right?
Not only
so
that,
that's-
we're talking about the human community cohering.
Around music.
It's the depth and breadth of human
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
In the future.
I look at something like sense making, I'm a bit tired of the converge diverge model at the moment, and I was expressing that frustration in the thread last night. And what I'm thinking today driving down here is like, I like questions and you like answers. And sense making holds both of those beautifully.
Yeah.
That's what sense making is, right? And that's a really, really potent distillation of what we're about into this value set. So
and it's valuable, making better predictions.
There's few sort of processes. It's very rare for me to not have a finger or a hand or something on the reins of a process. I don't give it up easily. And I sort of leaned into this thing at the weekend, like 100% of like, this is whatever this thing is, wherever we end up, this is what we're doing. And I think the outcome is really, 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 really positive, I feel, but I'm still processing it. So
I'll also say that you could use those terms and then add community in a sentence that follows it. You know what I mean? Like, I think those three were what emerged from the value set, which I don't think you would disagree with, that these are part of our values, because you're saying it's redundant. So these are like the three reflections of the things that we value that surfaced up to the top. But the second part, what I was texting about yesterday about finishing, is the surrounding information, the context in which those values manifest. And that obviously involves community. It can't not. It's part of the concept. Yeah. But I mean, it's in the writing already, like that part of it.
And we'll encode it even more deliberately, because it's there are, like you said, Spider, there are podcasts for whom someone wants to be an expert. It's clearly an expert's podcast. They broadcast to the network and the network receives. That's not what we're looking to do. It's a community at the table, which is odd, like 4 hosts or 4 whatever we are. So that's already, we're breaking that mold, and the sort of, the way we're connected to the community and working with and integrated in, the whole thing, the model is different. So encoding all of that into our language and our understanding, and I think it'll set us up for these form conversations and sort of sustainable structures. Like at some point we have to find a way to have income to help this thing, and we don't want it to be advertising. We don't want this to be brought to you by Audio-Technica or whoever.
Right.
So we're looking at other ideas. So yeah, I feel like that writing process, that last distilling of the ideas is what we've got left to do. I mean, we needed another 2 days in the desert is what we needed.
We really
So we're
but what I think we did is describe a strategy to maximally leverage us. Right? Making sense in a good faith atmosphere, sort of doing it as best we can. That's our unique contribution.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let's close on that.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. And here's to many more. Yeah, no guest next week. We're going to do. We're going to
John's birthday celebration.
Celebrate Chef Castelli.
Episode 30. We made it.
What do you get 30? The man who has everything?
More wine. Just more wine.
Down.
Yeah.
More.
I'm not buying John.
Do you guys want to? Do you want to surprise me and handle some food next week then? Birthday. Don't tell me. Just someone bring food.
Burgers and fries.
Down. Whatever you
want. Surprise.
Conversations is produced and mixed by Dylan Seals. The Conversations theme was performed and recorded by the Hazelrick Brothers.